Hello, and welcome to the Shea Hates Everything Podcast, where two brothers argue about video games and other shit that matters. My name is Shea, and today I hate personality and aptitude tests.
And my name is Kyle, and today I hate Steam's lack of customer service support and also Hurricane Helene.
Fair. Well, one of those is a little bigger than the other one.
Yeah, the Steam customer service support, fucked up, man.
I know. They have a lot of employees. It's a big problem.
Yeah, and apparently none of them work customer service because you can't get. There is no way to get to a human in Steam customer service. I found an old phone number that is the Valve office number, and when you go there, it's like, hey, you got to go to help.steampowered.com, and it's just a message that basically tells you that.
I'm here coming from there.
Right.
That's what brought me to this phone number.
So what happened was my buddy's playing all the Star Wars games, and part of that is the Lego Star Wars games. And so I decided I wanted to help share the load a little bit with him and play those through the Steam Remote Play together. Well, the Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, when you launch it, it hits it asks for a return signal from a server that no longer exists, so you can't play the game anymore.
Cool.
And I bought it in a block of 3 Lego Star Wars games, and so it took me 3 or 4 weeks to get to starting to play it, because we were working on the first Lego Star Wars, or actually the complete saga technically, which is I guess the third one, which combines 1 and 2, whatever. And so it was past the 2-week refund maximum time frame. And so I have now submitted a refund request 12 times for this game. And I've resolved to continue submitting it until maybe it hits a human somewhere where they're like, hey, this person's spamming the return thing. I need to ban him. And then that goes to a real human who can then read the message that I submitted, which explains the situation. But there are reviews on the Steam page calling out the problem. I'm sure they've had other people attempt to return this product. It just so happened that I bought it with a few other things, so didn't get around to playing it until after the 2-week minimum return or maximum return period.
I see.
So it's only $20, but I'm pissed about. I'm boomering myself up into hysteria about it because if I could just get to a fucking human, I could get my money back, but B, they could then delist this and stop this from being a problem for other people.
Because that's the main issue here is it's not just you had a problem with the game that wasn't compatible for some reason.
Right.
The game doesn't
is
work
broken
for anyone.
Right.
It should not be for sale.
Yeah.
That's illegal to do that.
And then I hate Hurricane Helene for all the obvious reasons and the not so obvious reason that it blew the tree over in my backyard onto my house. So now I have to replace my whole roof. But insurance.
And the tree.
Well, I'm not going to replace the tree.
You're not going to plant a new tree?
No, because we're going to take out the deck in the backyard and put in a patio. And where the tree was going to limit what we could do with the patio. And now there's no tree there. So it's actually kind of a blessing in disguise. So we could do whatever we want with the patio. And we're going to sell the house. So we're going to sell the house in hopefully 3 years-ish. And so I don't want to plant a tree and then the person who buys the house is like, I don't really want that tree there. Get rid of it. Or that's not the kind of tree that I like. I'd rather the person who buys the house decide to plant whatever tree they want wherever they want it.
But you could sponsor a tree elsewhere.
That's a good idea. I'll do that. I'll actually make a note to do that. That's a great idea.
It's not like you're not at fault for the tree falling over, obviously.
No, but that's a great idea. I like that idea. I'll do that.
We don't have enough trees, man. The trees are getting to be a scary situation.
I'll do you one better. I'll sponsor multiple trees.
Hell yeah. The children of the trees.
What?
New generations. Sponsoring new generations of trees.
Oh yeah. Tree kids.
Yeah. Treelings. Little treelings.
What is this? What is this moment?
Yeah, despite what it might sound like, this is a video game podcast.
Oh.
We are going to talk about video games. For those that missed the episode last month.
But wait. What about your personality and aptitude tests, Shay?
Oh, see, I was moving past that. So that actually I talk about the shit that matters, like we're saying here.
Well, this falls under other shit that matters.
It does. So I've been applying to a lot of jobs, right? I've been having lots of interviews, and as part of several of my interview processes, sometimes they'll have like a take-home project, etc. But for a few of them, I've had to do sort of it's not really like a personality assessment. I doubt how they would characterize it, but it kind of is that way. It's like, here's a 50-question quiz that teaches us like how your mind works to see if you're going to be a good fit for this company.
That's such bullshit,
dude.
dude.
I just find them to be complete bullshit. I've never taken one that felt related at all to the job that I would be doing.
Right.
And it's like they feel completely pointless because the company, or like call it the CEO or whoever wants to have these tests as part of the hiring process, they have a bias on what the right type of employee is.
Right.
And guess what? The right type of employee is exactly like them because they think they're smart and they think everybody should think the way that they do. And so it feels like a way to like scrub candidates out of the process because they quote unquote aren't the right fit.
Right.
But that's being filtered through a really heavy bias. And it just annoys me. And the reason why it's been very top of mind is I had one where it was asking a bunch of questions for me to stack rank things in the order that I would most like to do them. And these are all like career-oriented things. And the one question, which I will recite verbatim, is rank in, it's 3 options. Rank these in order of the most you'd like to do them to the least you'd like to do them. The 3 options were: 1, write a script or a play. Option 2, help disabled children learn how to play a sport. And 3, transfer data between 2 different online spreadsheets.
Fucking what?
And they wanted me to stack rank which one of those I would like to do the most. And so I think the most important part of this is some people would absolutely reasonably pick option 2. They would want to teach disabled kids a sport. I would write a script or a play. I love creative writing. That's my background. That sounds super fun. I'm not throwing any shade on helping kids learn how to play a sport. That would just be the number 2 in my choice.
Did the question say disabled kids?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, that tells you all you need to know right there, because it should be kids with disabilities is the proper phrasing.
It might have said that. I don't know. But it specifically called out children with disabilities in some way.
Okay.
To me, the biggest part of this is the third option. Like, it makes it feel like the only purpose of this test is to catch if I'm a liar or not. Because literally zero people in the entire universe would choose to transfer data between 2 online spreadsheets. No one would want to do that over anything. Do we do that? Is that a part of many of our jobs? Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I've transferred more data than I can possibly remember.
Oh, yeah.
But I wouldn't choose to do that over writing a fucking screenplay.
Right.
What are we doing here? And that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is pointless and useless.
And also there's like the weird social pressure of, I should probably put the children with disabilities one first, otherwise I'm a bad person, right? Like,
well, and in the instructions it says, like, make sure you answer honestly. Like, we have tools to find out if you're lying. Like, if you have like too many inconsistent types of answers.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing is, it's a scam.
Yeah.
It's a scam that these like test companies perpetuate on businesses, especially like Fortune 500 businesses.
Oh man.
You're like, oh yeah, we'll help you find the ideal candidate through our rigorous, testing processes. And it's a bunch of this bullshit.
We've been a part of hiring 500,000 employees over the past 5 years.
We know what makes a good employee.
Yeah.
The people that like spreadsheets.
Not those people helping children with disabilities over there. They're going to leave your job for a more fulfilling job later.
And I get it, right? Because it's trying to get the point of these questions is it's trying to get at the what makes you tick. Like, if you like writing stuff, you're probably more a creative oriented person.
You know what else can do that?
Helping and teaching, you're more of like the emotional support person. You like to teach and to lead and to be in public. If you like the data thing, you're more analytically minded, more process oriented. I understand what they're trying to get at. It's just the way that they get at it is so obvious and stupid.
And like totally impersonal and like feels like your response is actually out of your control. It's also like it comes to you with the assumption that you are incapable of articulating that yourself. So you have to use this tool in order to help you articulate what makes you tick, instead of trusting that when asked that you would have a coherent response.
Yeah, and all of these I have had to take after I have already had several rounds of interviews.
Oh, that's extra
which makes
annoying.
it feel even worse because, like, I'm talking to human beings, like you do in life, not just taking an online exam. I've got all my skills and experiences that I talked about, all the things I've done in previous jobs. Whether or not you think I'm a fit.
Yeah.
Me taking some anonymized, standardized test isn't going to tell you anything different. And like if the results of that test are different than what your experience of me was, which one do you believe? Are you really going to say that you believe this multiple choice answer 50 question quiz I took in 15 minutes, or are you going to believe the 2 hours I've spent in an interview with you talking like a person? It's very annoying.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
But anyway, it's fine. That this is where we are, man.
It's not
People
fine,
gotta find ways. Okay, well, I have to say that it's fine because I'm gonna have to continue doing these until I get a job. So I have to be okay with it. But yeah, as I mentioned 10 plus minutes ago, this is a video game podcast. We are going to talk about video games starting right now. We have several games to talk about today. We have our Game Club game from last month, which was Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, which is a banger, I would say.
Yes.
Also going to talk about Astro Bot, which I would definitely qualify as a banger. We may hear some dissent in that camp. We'll get to that. Some Caravan Sandwich, Thank Goodness You're Here, Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, some more recent games, and then some old school stuff, Ratchet and Clank, Final Fantasy VIII, Dino Crisis. Kyle recently played through every single James Bond game, so we're going to talk through his tier list.
Every one of them.
The best and worst James Bond games. I was very shocked to learn how long it has been since a James Bond game released.
It's been
and that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I know IO is working on one tentatively and have been for a while, but yeah, it's been a long time. We're due for some more James Bond.
And guess what? There's a reason there hasn't been one in a while. I'll just leave it there.
There are a lot of movie tie-in James Bond games, which is part of the problem in that era. And then we're gonna chat through your emails. Y'all came in big.
Swinging.
We had no emails last month, which was fine because it was sort of a transitionary formatting month for us. But we got 4 different emails this month. We're gonna talk through.
I love you.
And then we're gonna chat through some of the big highlights of game releases in October and our October Game Club game, which we will be talking about on the next flagship pod in November, the first Monday of November. So let's talk about some Space Marine 2.
Yes, let's.
It's good. I like it.
I love this video game.
It feels very old school. Old school is the wrong terminology.
Late 2000s.
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago games. 360 era, people like to say. It's more straightforward. It's more linear. It's got a lot of that. Everything is gray and gruff and violent, and not as many games are made like that anymore because games want to have so much more nuance and are so much more like story and character focused. Not that this game doesn't have story, it certainly does, but given that we are playing co-op with a friend of yours, the three of us have sort of been partying together throughout the whole story campaign, which honestly has been tough because all 3 of us have lives, and so we play like once a week.
Scheduling is rough.
We play like a mission a week.
Yeah, we were potentially going to be able to play tonight, but we have to do the podcast. So
correct. Yeah. But that's been very fun, but it's also causing us to like not pay attention to the story and what's happening with the characters.
I feel like I kind of like I'm getting enough to go along, which is surprising because of all like the crazy terminology and stuff that they have, but I still feel like I have a general idea of what's happening kind of in the fringes of the story a little bit. Like,
I mean, is there more happening other than kill the bugs and kill the like, chaos guys?
So there's the whole chaos, like, other marine faction, that, like, dissenting faction that you're going up against. And it seems like they have some pretty, like, dastardly designs on what they want to do and what they're willing to do to accomplish that. And so, you know, I feel like that's all you really need to know.
I have learned far more about Space Marine 2's story from watching a YouTuber that I like, Zanny, watching him play through the game. Because he, like, he's not, like, hardcore into Warhammer, but he is far more into Warhammer than I am. He played the original game, I have not. And so he knows, like, the Chaos Demons and all that stuff, which is where the Chaos Marines come from. There are different factions that... Yeah, they like worship one of the 4 chaos demons, and I guess this one it's different than in the previous games. And in Darktide, the enemies that you're fighting in Warhammer Darktide are servants to one of the chaos demons, which I also did not know. Yeah, or at least many of them are, maybe certain missions or something. But I point of me saying that is you are getting more from the story than I am.
Okay.
My story is, and I don't mean getting like you're enjoying it more than me. It's fine. I mean literally understanding more of it than me, because my understanding of the story is just you're killing the alien bug guys because they want to kill you, and then also you are killing the Chaos Marines, and you're kind of confused about like what they're doing and why.
Yeah,
that's about as much as I got so far, and I think we're on the last mission of the story.
Maybe. Maybe. I will say, like, gameplay wise, it's less boilerplate than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just like going to be a Gears clone, which it is in a lot of ways, but the emphasis on melee really surprised me, and like the parry system and all that stuff, like that really surprised me. And actually, like, once I was a little bit of like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this when it started, because it takes a little bit to kind of get the feel in. But once I was locked in, like that, like those fights feel fucking great. Like firing off a clip of ammo, and then the little blue reticle thing pops up, and then thing jumps at you, and you grab it, you smash it, break it in half, and then there's a yellow thing, so you dodge roll out of the way, and that, like, you open up an opportunity for like a quick shot headshot thing for a bunch of damage, and like you're getting piled on, so your armor's getting chewed through, but the quick shot you did like set up the enemy for a brutality finisher, and so you run and do that, get a bunch of your armor back. Like the flow of combat, like once you really get into it, feels really, really good. I was like, it can also go bad very quick. Like if you get it's one of those, it's almost like a rhythm game in that, like, if you get off in like a guitar solo in Guitar Hero, you're gonna fail the song. If your rhythm gets interrupted, it's very easy to just, your health gets completely demolished. It's very
the game
easy
is
to go down.
It's much harder than I expected it to be, just because of the volume of enemies they're throwing at you. And to your point, like especially when you're meleeing guys, I guess it's because there are so many enemies and you're getting hit so much that I'm not finding there to be like a great indicator of when I'm losing armor, when I'm losing health.
Sure.
It just all of a sudden my screen is red and I'm almost dead. And like I didn't really notice that I was getting there. That part of it I think is like a little bit wonky, but it definitely feels good being in the midst of things and just like hacking dozens of enemies.
Yeah.
I think the guns all feel really good. They feel really meaty. It's very Gears of War in terms of, well, I guess it's not because it's not a cover shooter, but like in terms of how the guns feel, it's very Gears of War.
Yeah.
Everything feels like
Space
heavy.
Marines don't need cover.
That's true. Yeah, I don't
we
even think
are
they could crouch
the cover,
even if they wanted to. Yeah. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I do think that it's a little bit samey in like the combat. I think they do a decent job of throwing new types of enemies at you.
Yeah.
Like when they introduced the Chaos Marines, and some of the bosses have been a little bit different. But
there's like fun set piece moments and stuff in there too.
Yeah. And I mean, we played the mission where like your buddy Cody got separated from us with the Chaos Marines, and so we're kind of defending him from a distance
with like sniper rifles and stuff.
Yeah, and that I think like a lot of those set pieces are fun.
Yeah.
But a lot of the in between stuff where it's just like wave after wave in hallways, that it starts to feel a little bit repetitive, and the missions are pretty long. Like they take
they are surprisingly long
minutes to finish.
And they're like
so,
multiple parts.
I'm really enjoying it. It's been a blast. I think like this will be a really good game for us to, again, once a week, but like to continue coming back to over the next like several months maybe. I definitely want to check out the operations.
Right.
I'm less interested in the PvP, mostly just because that's
not my vibe. I'm not going to play that at all, I don't think.
Yeah, I've seen that that's a good way to level up your kits. Like it's faster to level up in PvP than it is the operations, because the operations are long. But yeah, I'm excited to just explore that stuff and see what that's all about. I'm much more excited about being able to personalize my Marine than being stuck with like the main three characters where you kind of just have your one ability.
Yeah.
And you don't, the customization options in the campaign are not that robust.
No, they're not.
It's like add gold trim to your gun. And that's kind of it.
Yeah. Only one of the guns though can do that with the pre-order.
True.
Skin.
Yes.
So if you're not using that gun, fuck you, I guess. Maybe the best jetpack in a video game.
The jetpack is really good. We've only gotten to use it on the one mission.
I know, but that jetpack slaps, dude.
Yes.
It's powerful.
It feels very badass.
And like you get that big ground pound. Oh, dude. There's a hover mode. There's like a couple ways to engage the hover mode. It's like, you can just do like a big old like horizontal jump boost or a more vertical jump boost. That jetpack's real good.
The dodge roll also feels really good.
Yes, it does.
It's a little tricky because we're supposed to be these like semi-immobile giant hulks.
Yeah,
and then you're dodge rolling around everywhere.
Right.
But if you didn't have a dodge roll, I think the combat would kind of suck, especially the melee.
Yeah.
But that feels pretty good to do too.
Yeah. A++ from me. That's probably going to be on my Game of the Year list.
Yes, it'll definitely be on my Game of the Year list. It's not an A++. It's a solid B+ for me.
Mine's at least an A.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm just finding it to be a little bit straightforward as of now.
Yeah, I kind of like, because I've been spending a lot of time going back and playing older games. I really crave that kind of more straightforward experience, like more focused. And like I've seen, the studio head has come out and said, like, he's been pretty vocal about how like, hey, we did the thing that people said wouldn't work anymore, and it's been really successful. So maybe we should reevaluate like what we're thinking of is going to be successful. Like all these live service games, like all these like giant open world games, you don't need to spend $1 billion making a game for it to be successful. Like, look at what we just did. We feel really good about it. And it would be great if we could make another one of these kind of stuff.
I am very curious to see like the long tail of player engagement with operations mode, because what I've seen is that it's pretty limited. Like there are 6 operations missions that you just kind of play over and over again forever. That's not going to be enough to keep people engaged for 6 more months.
Right.
So because it does have a live service component, it is pretty hinging on how they're gonna support it and what they're gonna add, more customization, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious.
But in terms of like the campaign and what was available at launch with the 3 pillars, right? They've got the PvP, they've got the PvE, they've got the co-op campaign. That's very robust for the asking price.
Right.
So yeah, I would love to see more games that take this sort of approach to live service versus free to play, tons of cosmetic microtransactions, just like dumping new seasons every month, new battle passes. Like that stuff is so tired.
Right. Agreed. So,
yeah. Space Marine 2.
Yeah. People should play it.
I would be interested to go back and play the first one.
I think I would too. I know it's not as like people did not love it as much. I think it was even more straightforward, typical boilerplate than this one, definitely.
Yeah.
So I am interested in seeing what that one has to offer. Yeah.
When did that game come out?
It was on the 360. Warhammer
2011.
Okay, Space Marine.
2011.
Yeah.
It's been 13 years, man. It's crazy.
There's an anniversary edition on Steam for $40.
It's a lot.
That's too much for that game right now.
I agree.
But, oh well. Maybe I'll try that at some point. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what is my game of the year.
Okay.
Astro Bot.
I too have been playing Astro Bot.
I know it is not your game of the year. It makes me very sad that you're not as into this game. Astro Bot is so good. I'm full of joy, except for when I do the circle, square, X, triangle, straightforward platforming levels.
Those are awful.
And then I die 10 times, and I rage, and my kids have to cheer me up.
Those are awful.
But they're not awful. They're good levels. They're very challenging. I feel accomplished when I finish them. It's just that the sliding scale between the ease and casualness and exploration and fun good times of the normal levels, there's nothing in between those two experiences, and they feel like they are from different video games.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I like the hard levels. I truly do. The final level of that game is one of those levels, like, that's 5 times as long, and there are no checkpoints. It is so hard. I had such a hard time with it, but I felt so good when I finished it. And every time I died, I knew it was my fault. I missed a jump. I didn't attack at the right time. It wasn't like bullshit, right? It's just that I preferred the easy levels because I just wanted to relax and with a smile on my face and have fun.
Right. I definitely think it's a great mascot platformer. I think mascot platformers removed from my nostalgia doesn't really work for me anymore, I don't think. Like, I would go back and play like Mario Galaxy, action platformers like Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, because I have nostalgia for those specific games and those specific experiences. Astro Bot, like, despite the fact that it is entirely couched in Sony nostalgia, that's actually kind of the part that works for me the least and actually, like, kind of upsets me because it's like Sony throwing these old properties in my face and being like, hey, remember this? And I'm like, yeah, I fucking remember it. I love that. You're not doing anything with that, you pieces of
right.
shit. Like, you
Jack and Daxter, Sly.
Yeah, like, thanks Jim Ryan for turning everything into a shitty live service game and having it all fail and none of it's panning out. So now we don't have any of these amazing game franchises anymore. You're just sitting on the IP. And it's like growing mold in a corner in someone's basement. Like, and also, I'll just say Killzone and Resistance Erasure. Those are not an Astro Bot.
Yeah.
2 of my favorite Sony franchises, not an
That
Astro
is not
Bot.
true. Killzone is in Astro Bot. There are 3 characters that have Killzone masks. They have like the whatever. Yeah.
Oh. Well, Resistance is not for sure.
That I think is true. There are a lot of characters in Astro Bot from games that I have no idea.
Sure.
And it's a lot of the Japanese stuff. Like there are like Persona characters and things that Monster Hunter characters that I recognize like via osmosis, despite not really playing the games. But there were a bunch of characters that I was like, I don't know who the fuck you are.
Sure.
You look cute, but I don't know who you are. But yeah, I like, it's funny, the PlayStation stuff, I think I love it, and I loved it in Astro's Playroom. You could remove that entirely and it wouldn't hinder the experience, in my opinion. I think it would still be an incredible mascot platformer with really inventive power-ups and mechanics and levels.
I think I would like it better without the PlayStation stuff.
Because so much of it, like Astro's Playroom felt more like everything was PlayStation. Like the everything was branded in all of the worlds. And this feels like a more traditional themed galaxies, themed worlds that sprinkle PlayStation dust on top of them, with the bots that you're finding, with some of like the hidden things that you're doing.
And the general
a lot of
world
it has
themes,
sort of
some of the mechanics,
yeah,
like the God of War Axe stuff and all that.
Yes, the final level of each galaxy is themed on a like major and mostly recent PlayStation IP, and those in a lot of cases I think are like some of the best ones, just because they kind of go farther with the mechanics that they're introducing. But almost every level has a mechanic. Like they have like a chicken thing that gives you a boost vertically, and then there's like a bulldog one that gives you a boost horizontally. There's a monkey fist one. There's like a frog fist that has like stretchy fists or like spring-loaded fists that you can punch from great distances. And that shit is just extremely fun.
Yeah, that stuff's good.
I have a great time with that stuff. My kids also were obsessed with this game. Every time I played the whole thing with them, except for some of the platforming levels, because I knew me getting frustrated would not be super fun for them. But like my son, every time I put him down for his nap, Dad, can we play the robot game after my nap? And I'm like, hell yeah, we can, dude, of course. So that part of it was really nice, just to have, one, a game that I can play with them, but also, more specifically, a game I can play with them that isn't terrible.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to talk about it today because who cares? Game. Yeah, dude. With the Bluey game, I recently played a Paw Patrol game with them, which is just a complete piece of dog shit. Like, this is a really great video game that my kids also love to watch. And it's something that's different than Mario Kart, because Mario Kart just makes me angry these days.
Yeah.
Because I only play on like 200cc, because those are the only trophies I need still. And 200cc is bullshit. So I like playing Astro Bot, even though I can get equally angry at Astro Bot, depending. But yeah, like, what did you think about because Astro's Playroom was sort of the showcase for the haptic feedback and like the controller stuff. Do you feel like that it's making good use of that in Astro Bot too, or?
So I, at the system level, when I got my PlayStation 5, turned all of that off.
Why?
Because it's like stupid gimmicky bullshit. And it's just not, I don't give a shit about it.
Man, you just have hate in your heart.
No, I just I like what I like, and I'm not interested in like resistance on the triggers or what. Like, it's just not interesting to me.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, no, dude, tell me about it.
I like what I like. No new thing, only old thing. Old thing good, new thing bad.
No, I turned it on for Astro Bot because it's like supposed to be this core important part of the experience. I did not feel like it added any value to me personally. Like they're doing a lot with it. I don't think any of the things they do with it are interesting.
Yeah, I just totally disagree. I think a lot of the trigger stuff, it's not a game changer. It doesn't feel like I'm having a completely new type of experience playing a video game, but it is additive. It doesn't feel like a gimmick to me. And I also, which I know isn't new to the PS5, but I just love the microphone in the controller and the sounds coming out of the controller.
That's my least favorite thing in the world.
I love that stuff. God. When it's done well. And I think that I think it's done very well in this game. It's nothing critical. It's extra little sounds when you hit a thing or do a twist or, little things like that. And it helps with my immersion. I find that stuff pretty fun. It's frivolous, but I find it fun.
Yeah.
Because you're so hardcore.
I'm locked in.
Yeah, dude. No fun zone when you're playing Astro Bot.
Video games are work.
Yeah.
No, I just I can appreciate it for what it is. I'm not going to finish it. I got to the last galaxy. I played a level in the last galaxy, I think. I 100%ed a few of the levels throughout, but that was not of interest to me. So I felt like I saw most of the game and did most of the things, saw most of the gimmicks in the levels and stuff, and I appreciate those. And I'm done with it.
Sigh.
It's like a 7.5 out of 10 for me.
I went back.
I'll be generous. It's like it's an 8 out of 10 that I don't feel necessary to finish.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, obviously, if you're not getting a ton out of significant chunks of it. I mean, I went back, I 100%ed it and got the platinum trophy. It was a little tedious to do because you have to replay a bunch of levels. They do their damnedest to make it as easy as possible. After you play a level, at the beginning of the level, you can unlock this like little bird for 200 coins or whatever that chirps whenever you're near a bot or a collectible or a warp pad, and that makes it super easy. And also playing with my kids made it easy because they were always like they're goldfish. Like to them it's like we're playing the level again for the first time. So they help make it fun. And then also, which is another really cool quality of life thing, like you can quit out of a level at any time and you don't lose any of the stuff that you collected.
Sure.
So like, hey, if I am missing one bot on a level and he's near the beginning, I can get that bot and then quit out and I keep the bot. So I don't have to play through the whole level just to finish it and get it.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's also really nice. They announced some new levels and speedrunning stuff at the recent PlayStation State of Play or Showcase or whatever they called it. I'm less interested in that. Like, I'll play the new levels, but the like speedrunning isn't really what I'm there for.
Right.
I'm excited for more content. I would love if they had DLC or if they make a sequel, which I hope they make a sequel. Apparently, this hasn't sold like gangbusters, which is really disappointing.
Yeah, that's why. Like, I'm glad I bought it because I want Sony to do more stuff like this.
Right.
So, but it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So, like, there's that, right? There aren't as many PS5s as perhaps there maybe Sony would like there to be. But I think this is the kind of thing that is going to have a longer tail sales-wise with the PS5 Pro coming out.
I hope so.
I think we'll see. There will be more PS5s on the market because people with PS5s will sell theirs to get the Pro. There will be more pre-owned PS5s. More people will be able to get them. People get it cheaper because they're getting it for their kids or their family. They'll pick up Astro Bot because it's like the only one of those games that there are on the PS5. And so I think it'll have a little bit of a longer sales tail that way. It's also would be a great pack-in game for a bundle for the holiday. Mm-hmm. I think it'll still do okay, but I am surprised at the initial numbers being as low as they are.
Yeah, they didn't market it a ton, and it also sits in this weird spot of like it's not a kid's game, but it's very kid friendly, and it isn't a super difficult game. Right. It has its moments. It definitely has certain levels that have some really solid challenge, but generally it's an extremely easy game, and so plenty of toxic gamers are just not going to be interested in that type of experience because all they want to play is Dark Souls. Like, if you aren't making me hate video games, I don't want to play your video game because we're broken as human beings. Like, fun and joy are not what I go to a hobby for.
That's right. Give me the pain.
But yeah, so hopefully just with the critic reception, with word of mouth, holiday sales, all the stuff that you mentioned, that it picks up some... Like, it's not like this game sold poorly. It's just like... You know, I think in Japan it was like number 2 the month that it launched, which that's not great.
Right.
But that was also physical sales. This is the type of game that you would expect to sell more digitally. I mean, I bought it digitally, which I regretted, but it was too late.
Because the physical Astro Bot comes with this cute little fold-out comic book.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's cute.
That sucks. I have tons of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games just in a bin in my office, and that bin is full. And so I just like, you talking a lot about the collecting and the physical media and all that stuff. Like, I buy into that part of it too. For me, it's the balance between that and the convenience of having things digitally, and I need to be levering more on the physical media, I think, because there's no harm. It's really... honestly, the biggest pain point for me is I rarely will get the game the day it comes out if I pre-order it online. Like, it usually comes up the next day or whatever through Amazon because something's always delayed, and that's really frustrating. Digitally, I can download it and play it immediately.
Yeah,
again, convenience factor.
Definitely a time where I would be very frustrated by getting it a day or two late. There's so much stuff to play. I have good old fashioned standbys. Yeah. That's true. Sometimes I'm happy to just like catch up on some YouTube videos for a day or two and like not actually play anything. I have branched out more in what I, branched out more in what I like to kind of fill my days with, and so. Missing something by a day or two is not a huge deal. And also, like, if I really need that fix, I can always, like, watch someone play a little bit of it and avoid some of the spoilery things if I can. If I'm, like, really chomping at the bit for something. But, yeah, I'm letting go a little bit of that, like, immediacy factor.
Yeah, I get that. Last thing I'll say about Astro Bot, I was playing the final level, which was very hard for me. I know, get good. But I had died like 20 to 30 times, and I was getting really frustrated. And I was regularly getting to like towards the end of it, which makes it that much more brutal. And the thing that hurt the most was that my kids were watching me, and then after I died a bunch of times, they both like left to go play in their rooms, which like really hurt my feelings because I felt like they were giving up on me, like they had lost interest. And so I got to the final section. The time I actually beat the level, I had gotten to the little final section, and there are little points where you can like take a breath, but like, there's not a save point, but like you can stop and like recollect yourself before you jump into the next section. And so I got to that section and I called Penny in, my daughter, and I was like, hey, like I need your positive energy. Like, let's do this. Let's beat this thing. And I beat it. And after I beat it, all the confetti goes off and all this cool stuff happens. And she turns to me and she goes, good job, Dad. And it was like the best I've ever felt. The best, most accomplished I've ever felt in my entire life. Like that, like her belief in me and her support. It's so corny, and I'm being jokey, but also I really do mean it.
Yeah.
Like, her believing in me, it makes me feel like I can do fucking anything. It's the power of a child believing in you like that. Yeah. It made me feel so fucking good. Good job, Dad.
Oh, that's cute.
So we 100%ed Astro Bot.
Nice.
And then the kids wanted to move on to something else, and I didn't want to play the next Paw Patrol game. And so I was like, hey, do you guys want to check out Ratchet and Clank? That has a robot in it. And Max, of course, my son, was like all over that. He's 3 and he loved the robot thing. So we played Ratchet and Clank, the 2016 game, the remake of the original, because I already had it downloaded, or I already owned it. And it felt like a good sort of entry point. And they weren't as into it as Astro Bot. Like, they weren't wrapped with attention. And I think it's because there's less going on visually. Like, that's one of the cool things about Astro Bot is there's, like, stuff everywhere and floating creatures and little enemies and tons of colors. And Ratchet and Clank has all that, but it's more of, like, an action game than, like, a simple platformer. And I think that was just, like, less engaging to them. They did really love it, and they loved the story. They loved Clank and Captain Quark and thought it was really funny, and they liked like Captain Nefarious. Like, whenever he would come on screen, my daughter would boo him, and it was very cute. And so we played through all of that, and that game's like relatively short because I wasn't trying to 100% it.
Right.
I got the platinum in that game already. Like, I was just playing through it for the story. So we did that one, which it made me remember how bad the story is in that game because it's the movie tie-in.
Right.
And so a lot of the cutscenes are just clips from the movie, complete with the little icon and sound notification that's like gameplay recording paused because you entered a blocked scene.
So
every time one of those entered, it totally breaks your immersion. But there were so many sequences that it would play a little clip from the movie and then just like jump right into gameplay. And so you lose a lot of the context because they didn't want to show more of the movie, or like there was a scene that didn't include, like they didn't include in the transition. So the story in that game, I think, is terrible. Just the flow is really, really bad, which is disappointing to go back to. But it still looks gorgeous.
Well, yeah.
It came out in 2016, like 8 years ago, and it still looks beautiful just because of the color and the art direction and everything. And it's still very fun. All of the weapons are a great time. My kids loved the Sheepinator the most, which is a bummer. You get it like towards the end, but that's like the only weapon they wanted me to use. And then when I used it, my daughter didn't want me to hit the sheep. She was like, "No, don't hit the sheep." I was like, "Penny, those are the bad guys. I just turned them into a sheep." She's like, "Yeah, but they're not bad now. They're a sheep now.
Well, they're
Don't
gonna
hit
be
them."
bad again, so we should kill them.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a really fun time. And then I looked at my library and saw that the only other Ratchet and Clank game that I own still is the digital version of the Rift Apart, the PS5 game.
Okay.
So like the Crack in Time, which is probably my favorite Ratchet and Clank game. Like I owned all of those on PS3, PS4, but I at some point traded them in, sold them, did whatever, and I just don't have any of them. And then I saw that PlayStation Plus Premium tier has all the Ratchet and Clank games.
Oh boy.
And that I could purchase the rest of my year of PlayStation Plus. I could upgrade for like $62. And it renews in July, so it's like almost an entire year of the premium tier. So I bought it.
Oh my god.
So we started the original Ratchet and Clank, the 2002 version, yesterday. So we only played, an hour or so.
Paying money for games you still don't own.
Yeah. But like
what are you gonna do?
There's literally no other way for me to play that game.
Buy a PS3 and an original copy.
I actually have a PS3. I don't know if it works, but I actually do have a PS3, so I shouldn't say that because I could totally go do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna.
Boo.
But yeah, that game looks not great these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in 4x3. It's like I'm streaming it, which I actually, granted, I only played for an hour, but I had no issues with the streaming, like no latency problems, which was nice. It definitely looks fugly, and coming from the 2016 version, my daughter goes, "Dad, that Ratchet looks different." And I was like, "Yeah, this is an older game."
Yeah.
And it's really funny during the cutscenes to hear Ratchet and Clank talk, because it made me think of like if you go back and watch the pilot of The Simpsons. You can recognize the voices of the characters, but they're very different. Like they haven't found the character yet,
right?
And that's how this game feels. Like they haven't totally found those characters, but it is still very funny. I laughed out loud a couple of times just in the opening sequence, and the gameplay is also not good. The camera is very slow, and it feels like thick. Like you're moving the camera through like a thick fog. It's not responsive. And there's also no like lock on or strafe in that first game. So I've gotten through it because it's early on and easy, but I'm a little afraid once I get deeper into the game that the combat's going to be rough with no ability to like lock on. Because there's a first person mode that you can like zoom into first person to get fine aim, but you can't move when you're in that mode. And so it's an old game.
Yeah,
it's a 2002 game. But yeah, I mean, we're going to play through all of them. I have not played the OG Ratchet and Clanks in, 15 years. So we'll see how those go. Deadlocked and up your arsenal and all that good stuff. I mostly wanted to play, I really wanted to play Tools of Destruction. Yeah. That was like my favorite PS3 game.
That was the first PS3 one?
It was a launch game, I think.
Okay.
Because it didn't have trophies. They never went back and added trophies. That's right. And I've platinumed every Ratchet and Clank game that you can. So I would totally platinum that one, and I just can't. But yeah, that's been very fun. I'll continue to check in on Ratchet and Clank on the pod, and then maybe I'll do a little tier list once we get through all of them.
There we go.
In like a year. Or I guess we have to get through it. We have to get through them all before next July, because I don't want to continue playing for premium.
Yeah, for sure.
So what about you? What else? Caravan Sandwich.
Yeah, we both played Caravan Sandwich for a little bit.
Yeah.
How far did you get, do you think?
4-ish hours.
Okay, that's about what I played.
Yeah, I got through like two or into like the third, kind of like the third big section, like area.
Is that because okay, so like the big it's like the first really big area is split into like a few different zones.
That's what I mean.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Like that big desert, there's like the area to the right with like a bunch of like the big, sand dune vehicles. And then like if you go straight, there's like the water or like to the, I don't remember, I'm bad with directions. There's the swamp, or like not swampy, but like there's a bunch of water areas. Yeah. That's kind of where I stopped.
Okay.
Exploring that
Gotcha.
spot.
I was kind of about that. I had driven around most of the places. And I was kind of wrapping up some quests and stuff in that first large area. The game's all right. I like the game. I like Caravan Sandwich.
Yes.
There's not a lot to it.
I think so. I watched a review of it from my dude Skill Up on YouTube, or maybe he mentioned it in like his weekly news show or something. And he likened it to Sable, which is a game I had checked out based upon his recommendation and loved that game. And he said, hey, it's kind of like Sable. It's a chill, vibes-based. You're driving around. There's like very minimal platforming, very minimal puzzle solving. It's mostly just like some gentle exploration. And I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. I loved Sable. I find this game to be less compelling in every single way than Sable.
Sure.
Like it is good. I'm enjoying my time, but it does not have the visual identity that Sable has. It does not have the distinct visual aesthetic and graphics style of Sable, with like the cell shadedness and the sepia tones and the like, the intentionally choppy frame rate that Sable had. It just doesn't have any of that. And then the biggest bummer for me is I don't like driving the van.
Right. I don't not like it. It's like I was expecting it to be more fun to drive around, but it's like the environment gets in your way a lot more than I would have thought.
And to tie it back to Sable, one of the things that made the exploration in Sable so good is you're driving like a hovercraft that floats over the sand dunes. And so, you have to avoid rocks and like outcroppings, but when you're just driving, it's fluid. Caravan Sandwich is not that way because you're physically on wheels on the ground. So all of the terrain bumps you around. You have to get over things. And that is, it makes the game not feel chill, which is clearly what the intent of the game was. And so that I feel like is kind of flying in the face of that feeling.
Right. Yeah. Also, like,
I do really like it.
I like it, and I want to like it more. I like it, and I want to really like it, but I don't.
I agree. There's not enough to it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the uniqueness of a game like Sable that elevates the sort of mundane stuff that you're doing.
Right. And also, like, the writing is fine, but also at a certain point it started to get a little annoying because there's so much of it.
Yeah, this is my okay boomer meme moment. I am finding, this is going to sound like super reductive, and I'm sorry. It feels very Gen Z. Like everyone just sits and talks about their feelings constantly.
Agree.
And I'm just like, get over it a little bit.
Yeah,
that might be incredibly toxic of me to say.
Well, you're not a teenager anymore. And like sitting
That's
around
true.
and talking about your feelings is really important when you're still trying to understand your feelings.
Yeah.
But once you're grown and you've gone through that phase and you understand yourself and your place in the world and how you react to things and are working on your own stuff, like, you don't have to talk about it all the time, and you shouldn't, because it is exhausting. And so it is emotionally draining to talk about your feelings all the time. And only young people can do that because they have that emotional energy left to burn. And so playing a game where everybody has that energy and I don't anymore, it's just kind of like, like I just want to drive the van, bro. But then also the van's not hitting as much as I thought it would.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like we've exclusively been criticizing this game, but I am enjoying
We've
it.
said multiple times it is good. We just want it to be
we're not
really
saying
good.
anything that is good about it, I think is the problem.
Okay.
Everything we're saying about the game is a criticism, and then we say, but it's good, though.
Good.
But we're not saying anything good.
You're right, because like the van does feel good to drive. It's a cute design. I like the art of the world. It's not like
100%.
The art is not doing anything crazy, but it's like doing stuff with pastel colors that I really like. And there's a lot of like,
it's very pleasant.
Yeah, there are a lot of neutral tones in the environment, but then pops of color. That like really are eye-catching. I think like there's a lot of variability in the design of the areas and the different zones you're going to. Like some of the characters are like anthropomorphic animals, which is super fun.
Yeah, I really like the frog.
The frog
people.
dude is great.
Yeah.
And I like your little
he reminds me of
cliffside...
a Tool from Spiritfarer.
Oh, sure. Okay. I like your little hub town that's like built into these two cliffs in this little valley. I like that setup and how it's all cobbled together from pieces of like old metal and wood and stuff from this defunct society that came before. Like there are things about the world that are interesting. Just gameplay mechanics wise, you're not doing a lot of interesting things. Yeah.
I think the attitude of it, despite being a little bit annoyed by some of the dialogue and the characterizations, the tone, it having this like melancholic,
it's a little wistful.
Yeah, wistful is a good word too. Like that is really vibing with me for sure. It has that I'm going to keep relating it to Sable. It has that relaxing sadness that just like kind of feels nice. Like it feels like a good fall game.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Very much so.
Which is ironic because it like takes place in this really dry desert.
Right.
But yeah, it is. It's a good game. It's mostly the way that the reason I keep categorizing it the way that I am is because I'm a little underwhelmed.
Right.
And disappointed because of the comparisons to Sable, which that game is extremely singular in my mind, the way that like Journey was. Like my experience playing that game is something I will never forget. It was like momentous for me because of the vibes, and I am searching for another game to hit me the way that did.
Right.
And feeling like Caravan Sandwich was extremely exciting, and it is not at all hitting me like that, and that's just disappointing. It's not the game's fault. I just wish, I wish it was Sable 2, basically.
Yeah.
Like, make it Sable 2.
Yeah, it's a game that's very hurt by the comparisons we're bringing to it.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I'm just looking up the developer of Sable. Like, what the fuck are they doing, man? Make another video game. Two people made that game?
Oh my gosh.
There is no way. That was their first game.
Wow.
2-person game development studio. No, that's not possible. Founded in 2014. Founded in a garden shed in London. Oh, okay. They've worked on music and stuff like that, not just games.
Okay.
Yeah, they've made one video game. What a banger. Make another one.
Yeah, it'd be cool if they made another one.
All right, let's move on. Let me talk about Thank Goodness You're Here briefly, because Kyle, I know you talked about that. I guess it was last month.
Right.
This game's a delight.
I'm so glad you liked it.
I really did. The crass, sort of out of left field British humor isn't always my thing. Like, I have a great appreciation for Monty Python. There's a lot of Monty Python that I love, but it's not one of my favorite things the way it is for a lot of people. A lot of the other like classic British humor type shows I don't really enjoy, like fucking Red Dwarf. Was that what it's called?
Oh, maybe.
I know a friend of mine really likes Red Dwarf. There's another one that you like, right?
Mighty Boosh.
That the dude with the Mighty Boosh. That's the dude on Great British Bake Off, right?
I have never seen that. I don't know. But that's the old Greg people.
Yes, I think that is true. But yeah, there's a lot of the British style sort of like, what's a good word to describe their sensibilities with comedy in that way? Like, it's broad, but it's also, like, kind of lazy. Like, it's got this, like, casual physicality to a lot of the humor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always hit for me.
It tends to be more absurdist than Western comedy in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But,
frankly, a lot...
To your description, right, like, Western comedy can be absurd, but we're absurd in a shock value kind of way. They are absurd in, like you said, a lazy kind of way, like a not lazy as a pejorative, but easygoing absurd.
Yes, easygoing. That's a better word for it. It's got like more of a fantastical sort of perspective on it. Because I was gonna say, like, a lot of the absurdist Western cartoon humor I despise.
Right.
Like the like whatever fucking Adventure Time and what's the one, the High on Life guy, Rick and Morty, like those shows. I cannot stand those shows. Zero judgment on people that enjoy them. It's not. I'm not saying like it's objectively terrible. It's just not my sense of humor at all.
I like Adventure Time and regular show.
I think the British stuff is like more mature form of that kind of humor.
Yeah,
which is why I tend to like it.
They've been doing that for a long time. Yeah,
that's
part of it.
So all of that to say, I laughed out loud many times during Thank Goodness You're Here. There were also a lot of bits that just like didn't hit with me.
Sure.
So it was kind of an inconsistent comedic experience, but it was an overwhelmingly delightful one.
Yeah.
I loved, like, all of the characters are fantastic, and the little, not even mini games, but like the little vignette gameplay things that you do, I found to be very fun.
Yeah. Did you slap that dude's butt in the hot dog truck?
Of course.
Oh,
many
he was
times.
So mad.
Every time I could. He got extremely mad.
So mad about it. Like, man, if you're so mad about it, keep them buns tucked in.
How could you not? Like, if I see some cake, I'm gonna slap some cake, you know? I mean, I slapped everything. I broke lettuce leaves and snails, and I squashed bugs. I slapped little children that were bullying some like political figure in the town. All of that stuff was very fun. It's an extremely short game. I played it in one sitting, a little over 2 hours. I do think that like they repeat a lot of the sections,
right?
Because there are 4 or 5-ish areas in the game that are all interconnected by, like, you get sucked down a pipe and you kind of suck your giant head through the pipe, and it's in a very comedic way, or you have to go like underground in this little sewer little area in order to get to another spot. And you kind of go through that from area to area multiple times. And every time you're in an area, there's a new gimmick. Hey, you get to go talk to this store owner for a different quest, or you have to go get this thing or that thing.
And like the state of everything has changed each time you go through.
It does. It changes. Well. Yeah. Yeah, like a new store might have opened, or characters have moved. One of my favorite recurring bits were the two people arguing about the bins.
Yes.
She's like, you put your trash in my bin, and he's like, nuh-uh. No. And then the next time you come back, and his garbage bin is in her garbage bin, she's like, you put your bin in my bin. And he's like, well. And then the next time you come back, they're both sitting in the bin. Yeah. And like, you're in my bin. And like, again, it's that absurdist comedic sort of, it builds on itself that I think is just very clever. As a game that I spent 2 hours on a single day, that's like, what more can you ask? It was extremely funny. I loved the ending of it. Where you're basically the whole time you're waiting to see the mayor, and then you get pulled into everything else and all of the quest oriented things. Whenever you walk up to somebody, they say, thank goodness you're here. Here's my problem. Right. And that's kind of how the game ends too, when you walk into the mayor's office finally and they go, thank goodness you're here. And that's the end of the game. And I thought it was very cute. Just a great like slice of life for something that I have zero exposure to, like living in a small English town. Right. But I feel like I get it now because it's the comedy is so specific. Yes. And the characters feel so specific that you can tell the creators of the game are just referencing their own lives and their own experience.
You're right on. Like, they're so specific that it feels like how like when you look at a caricature of a person, you can kind of see the real person in there, and also the point of view of the person who drew that person. This feels like each of these people are caricatures of a real person, and also the caricaturization is reflective of parts of that real person, but also the perspective of the team who made it and their experiences of living in this small town. And so I get a lot of that, the reality of it, pulled out from like between the lines and stuff, through playing it. There's a lot of fun. Yeah,
it was a good time. Last one I'll chat about. I played some Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. It was on PlayStation Plus, I think, this last month. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm just trying to play more stuff right now.
Sure.
Because I'm hoping that my job search is coming to an end relatively soon. So I'm trying to like maximize my time and just play a bunch of... I meant to start Zenless Zone Zero yesterday and I ran out of time. So I'm going to play that this next month. Just because I'm like, I have it downloaded. It's free. Let me just check it out. I'll play it for a few hours. There's like way more depth to Quidditch Champions than I anticipated. I essentially only played through the tutorial, which is like a couple hours of you're basically at whatever the fuck Ron's house is, and they're like teaching you how to play Quidditch in the different positions.
Okay.
And each position has really specific mechanics. So like as the beater, right, you have the bludger, which works differently than in real Quidditch, quote unquote, where you can press triangle to summon the bludger to you, and then you can kind of like aim it or lock onto someone as you're flying by and hit it at them.
Okay.
The chasers, it's a lot more of you're switching between the characters to pass back and forth. They've got a speed boost that they can use. The keeper sits more just on an x-axis, so it kind of gives you like a behind the goalposts view, and you can move forward and backward a little bit, but you're mostly just moving side to side, and you can like dive to cover the different hoops. And then it also has a mechanic where you can place speed boosts in the arena for the chasers to use to like refill their speed boost.
Okay.
So it kind of like is a little bit of a team management thing. And then the Seeker, the way the snitch works is like every couple of minutes the snitch will appear, and then you switch to your Seeker and you have to like fly around and find the little golden glitteriness. And once you do, you just chase it, and you have to stay within like these speed boost rings in order to catch up to it. Nothing is like exceptionally deep, but each player type has enough of a different mechanic that they feel like they are actually working in unison to like win the match and score points. And that part of it I thought was actually like pretty satisfying. I did not enjoy playing as the keeper. I was terrible at it, so I just let the computer stay as the keeper, and I just whipped between the chasers and the beaters pretty much the whole time. I stopped after the tutorial just because I ran out of time that day. I'll probably go back just to see more of the progression, and I don't think there's like a story mode, but it kind of takes you through Hogwarts into like professional Quidditch, and I'm just kind of curious to see what that stuff looks like and sort of the set dressing around it.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I wanted to talk about is that you create your own Quidditch team. So as they're introducing you to each position, you're creating a character that will be that position for your team.
Okay.
And so the first one you create, just becomes your first chaser because that's the introductory thing. And so that person, like I just made look mostly like me. He's short. He a short king. He got glasses on. He looks cool. He's got like a black sort of like short sleeve, long sleeve tee thing going on with some Ravenclaw insignia on there, because I played Hogwarts Legacy, I think there was like some connection point there, so I got some Hogwarts Legacy stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then as I built out the rest of the team, just for funsies, I wanted to make like the most diverse team I possibly could. And in my headcanon, this isn't a real thing. Maybe at some point you get to name your team. But in my headcanon, my team's name is the I don't know how you... the like Worcestershire sauce, like Worcester sauce, if everybody knows what that is. Wooster, there you go. I called them the Wooster Wokies.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my keeper is this like tall, lanky black dude with cool dreads. My beater is, you can't make a character, you can't orient their sexuality in the game because that would be stupid. But in my headcanon, my beater is this like Hispanic gay kid who's like a nerd and he's got glasses. And then my two other seekers, one of them I kind of modeled after Moana, so she's got kind of like from different sort of like islands or Caribbean or whatever you might want to say. Pacific Islander, thank you. And then the other one, she's Hispanic with the dark hair and all those sorts of features. And then my seeker, you can choose pronouns. And so my seeker, I use the like feminine face type, but I gave her kind of glasses and made her look sort of androgynous. And she's like a non-binary Asian nerd, like who's like in my headcanon, she's like the shy kind of like aloof one. So my team is like exclusively made up where the only white character is the one who's a self-insert for myself, and everyone else is some sort of like diverse minority. And it actually happened not on purpose through the first couple of characters. Like I made the two chasers and then the keeper, and then I was like, wait, this is coming together like this, I'm gonna make all these characters this way. And then I came up with the Wooster Wokies as the team name, and I was just really proud of that. So I need to go play more of it just to hang out with the Wokies, you know.
Yeah. Oh man, they'd all belong in Caravan Sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. They just sit around the campfire talking about their
flying
feelings.
around in their brooms and talking about their feelings.
So yeah, I had far more fun with it than I expected. It's certainly not a game that like I'm gonna play online against other people, but I totally will go play a couple more matches just to see what else there is, especially from a customization. You can pick there's wand customization.
Interesting.
And to my knowledge, there's no like magic or casting in the game. So I think it's just
like fun RP stuff.
Yes, some roleplay stuff for sure. But yeah, I had a pretty decent time with it.
That's interesting. I will not play this, but that is way more interesting than I thought it would be.
Yes, that is exactly what I came away feeling, for sure.
Huh.
All right. You've been playing some old games.
Yeah, I got... All right. I hate to even talk about it because you're going to just throw this in my face for like the next decade.
Great. Can't wait.
I got the most immaculate copy of Final Fantasy VIII online at a great price. It's beautiful. Not a damn scratch on the case. The booklets are in perfect shape. It's like the discs have never even been played. This copy's beautiful. I've been playing Final Fantasy VIII. I am on disc 2 of 4. I'm going to jump ahead. Final Fantasy VIII does not belong on the 1999 games that don't suck list. It also doesn't belong on the games that suck. That was a rude move by you. We don't need to.
I know.
We're not going to rehash it. We're not going to rehash it.
We relitigated this on the Games That Don't Suck podcast. Listeners, if you haven't listened, go listen. I added it because I knew it would rile you up, for one, which is always the most important part. And two, it was a phenomenally disappointing game on the heels of Final Fantasy VII. That was it. I absolutely did not believe it was one of the 3 worst games. It wasn't one of the 10 worst games of 1999. But that's why I brought it up. I never suggested it belonged on that list. You did suggest and fought for it to make the top 5 of our best games of 99, which now you're admitting was a falsehood and bullshit.
It was.
And you're a big dumb dummy.
I agree with the first thing you said. Here's the thing. I still like 8. I just have more problems with it than I remember having because I played it when I was a child and I didn't know certain things about it, about the mechanics. So
this is why you can't go back, man.
This is why it's
always happens.
This is why it's important to go back.
I feel like it like ruins like this. When I played KOTOR, when I went back and played Final Fantasy VII, like those games are so much worse than I remembered them being.
But I'm still very much like I super appreciate and respect everything that 8 is doing, and I've found new things about 8 that I really love that I'd forgotten about.
Okay,
so for me it balances out, and the exercise of going back and playing these old games has been really important for me, and I'm enjoying it a lot. This just happens to be a situation where I have to eat crow a little bit on this one. I love the visual style of 8. It is so much my shit. I think it looks incredible. They do so much more with the pre-rendered backgrounds than they did in 7. They're way more dynamic, way more moving elements. They look much better. Like, there were times in 7 where I had no idea what the fuck I was looking at. 8, like, the pre-rendered backgrounds look terrific. They do these cool camera shifts while the 3D models are still overlaid. And so, like, sometimes the, like, anchoring of them on the scene isn't entirely perfect, but they do this really cool, like, actual motion graphic 3D rendering on the backgrounds where they're like the perspective will shift and elements will move. It's really impressive, interesting, cool looking stuff. The game, like the music is awesome in 8. I think that's something I never hear people talk about. I love the tracks in 8. They are so good. Like I know, like 7 is so iconic, but I like. Right. In just like a listening to while I'm playing, 8 has some really fucking immaculate vibes with the music. It's so much closer to 10 than I even remembered it being. Like, the menu noises are the same, but just also the general vibe and feel of the world is very similar. Like the tone of the writing and stuff, and it turns out it's because it was fucking Nomura. But I'm jumping through my notes because I've been jumping around, so I'm trying to find where I'm at. I did not remember. Here's my problem. My biggest problem. I did not remember the game has like the enemies scale with your level. So their health and stats scale with your level. The big problem with that is that one of my big problem with it is that you never attain the power fantasy that grinding is supposed to give you, which is one of my favorite things in a Final Fantasy game. But additionally, the enemies level and their stats increase at a rate that is greater than the character's stats. So the higher level you are, the harder the game is for you. So it's not only that it's like maintaining a difficulty curve, the game gets harder. The way you mitigate that is by engaging with the magic system and the junction system, which is you have your summons or your guardian forces, your GFs, your girlfriends, which you can junction or like, infuse with a character. And then each guardian force you can add to them as you get ability points for them and like upgrade them and stuff, but each guardian force has its own stats that it junctions to, and then it's so complicated. It's needlessly complicated is the real problem with it. But like, let's say I have Ifrit junction to Squall. Ifrit will junction with Strength. So great, I can he's junction with Strength, and then I have to assign magic that Squall has to that junction, and what magic it is, how much of the magic I have in stock, because remember, listeners at home, you draw magic from the environment and from enemies and use it like a consumable. So how many you have also affects how much it increases. So like, let's say your Asuna spell, which eliminates status effects, negative status effects on a character. Your Asuna spell is really good for your spirit stat, but you only have like 10 Asuna spells when you could have a max of 100. So there's actually a different spell that's better because you have more of it. But if you farm a bunch of Asuna, then you should probably go back to Asuna because the benefits are going to be greater. Guardian forces will also have like attacks and both status attacks and elemental attacks and resistances that you can junction. So like similarly in 10, how weapons can have like blind and poison and scan effects and stuff on them, you can just like junction that magic into your attack slot. But again, not every Guardian Force has an attack junction, but like you can. So for example, there was one enemy that I was having a really big problem with, and so I went and farmed a bunch of sleep magic and got the max number of sleep magic, which is 100, and junctioned it into one character's attack slot. And so now there's 100% chance that that character will put a monster to sleep when doing a physical attack. Now, maybe that monster has like a 20% resistance, so really my chance is 80%, but that's like a really cool, useful thing. It's just like, it's such a twisted, convoluted, cumbersome road to get there that I think they did much better in 10. Also, I thought, I could have sworn there was a way to play Final Fantasy VIII without active time battle. There's not. There is not. Like, that was just, my memory had completely failed me at that point. So it is all active time battle. You have active and wait are the two modes, which are standard in most of those early Final Fantasies. I hate that with a flaming fervent passion. That was like one of the main reasons why I was not enjoying 7. So like that's a huge bummer for me. I know a lot of people don't mind it. It's because 10 is a perfect video game that like that is the system that I enjoy, and so the fact that it's not hard to compare. It like makes me sad. But that's my main issue with 8, right? It's like you can't attain a power fantasy unless you are willing to spend time farming a bunch of magic off of enemies and junctioning it just right. But then the game is you're constantly swapping back and forth between these parties, and they have some systems in it to make the swapping easier. Like you could just transfer everything, like all the junctions and magic inventory from one character to another. But like keeping track of who has what is really hard to do. And like I said, just super cumbersome. So that's kind of my main issue, is that, you know, how uneven it can feel, I think, because of those weird hidden systems. And like that's something that my buddy who was watching me play it, he like had to look up and tell me like, oh, you actually might not want to grind because it's gonna be worse for you. And I was like, what? Yeah. And then like I never knew that, and you don't really know that because it's a hard thing to like feel throughout the course of a game. Like you just probably think, oh, enemies are just getting harder because I'm further in the game, but it's actually scaling to your level. Also, like, I'm not getting all the feedback that I need in combat. Like when I put a status ailment on an enemy, certain ones of them, like protect or shell, don't have like a thing associated with them. So it's like hard to know when they're going to run out or if they're still active. It's easy to miss stuff. Your max health is not displayed in combat. And that's something that's always in flux because based on what you're junctioning and based on what level you are, your max health could be very different. And you're swapping character parties all the time. So it's like, I constantly forget, like, yeah, this character has 900 HP. Is that the max? Or are they one of the ones that's over 1,000? And should I be healing them or should I not be healing them? Should I use my cure or my cura? Because if they're junctioned cura, then it's going to lower this thing because I'm using one of my stocks of cura. So it's like it's a weird system. I like the magic system narratively because like
sure
it's like, oh, you're drawing like things in the world are imbued with magic and you are drawing it out of them. I love that narrative. It makes it feel like really part of the world and makes it all feel connected. I just really hate the mechanics of it. Is kind of what it comes down to.
And which version are you playing? Are you playing the remaster?
No, dude, I have the fucking 4-disc
on
PS1.
PlayStation 1.
So I'm playing on my PS3, but the PlayStation 1 discs. Yeah, I'm playing OG, baby.
Because I want to go back because I have not played this game since it came out. I don't think I ever finished it because that was kind of my thing with Final Fantasy games, is I'd get to like the final thrust, go off to grind, and then never finish the game. That happened with 7, and it definitely happened with 12, I remember, because when I played the Zodiac Age and beat it, I was like, wait, I guess I never beat this game because I don't remember this. Because I want to go back and give it another shot, and I'm wondering if getting like the PC port is the way to go, or if I should get the remaster from a few years ago.
So I think the remaster's fine. However, the font fucking sucks, because there was a period of time where Square was remastering all their Final Fantasy games, and they used this particular font, and it just looks fucking bad, dude. It makes all the menus look like shit. It really does. And it seems like a small thing, but you stare at menus a lot in Final Fantasy VIII. I looked up gameplay of the remaster because I was like, was the turn-based thing in the remaster and not in the original? It's like, no, it was just never in the game. But I was watching the remastered footage. I was like, oh, this looks nice and clear and not like muddy, whatever. And these models look nice, I guess. But then the font, dude, just fucking ruined it for me. It looks so bad. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I really like how it looks just natively, originally, the original version. The CG cutscenes are another thing that really impressed me. Those like pre-rendered cutscenes. The animation for those has been really, really good. Like way above what they were doing in 7. Such an advancement from that. That stuff was really impressive. I think like the story is way more comprehensible than the story in 7. It's way easier to follow. I do find it very interesting. I also watch a lot of anime, so there's like this whole the Balam Garden and the Galbadia Garden are these like mercenary schools that train young adults to become mercenaries in like this basically mercenary army that hire themselves out for conflicts and stuff. And so there's like a little bit of that like anime, we're students but we're warriors. There's like some of that energy to it, but like the conflict stuff, like they're giving you both sides of it, because you'll occasionally like the characters will have visions of this other party of people from the other army, and like things that they're going through and like their journey. And so you're getting like, it humanizes the other faction in a really interesting way. And I think it's because the real big bad is the sorceress, who's kind of playing the sides against each other. So the purpose of that is to be like, hey, you know, in every conflict, there are people who get caught in the middle of the people on top. That manipulate them. And so wars really aren't about a side versus a side. It's really about the people at the top not having to pay for the consequences of their actions, kind of a thing. So I think that's part of the message, which I think is really like still kind of prescient.
Sure.
And I think still definitely applies today. And like I just think it's told really well. I think the writing is good, the pacing is good. You know, they leave a lot of like the incidental side story stuff is optional, because you could just like choose to talk to characters more or not and just kind of proceed with stuff. The set pieces are incredible. There's a lot of variability in the environments and places that you're going to. I've been super impressed with all of that stuff so far. So I still really like Final Fantasy VIII. I just don't love it as a video game, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah, it's tough, like, coming off of Final Fantasy VII and bouncing off that hard. Like, I know last podcast I mentioned how I kind of fell off and started New Vegas. I have not gone back to it in a month. And so it's just, I'm having a very hard time with the mechanics and the visual look of Final Fantasy VII. And so I was kind of nervous about going back to Final Fantasy VIII, which again is one of the reasons I was considering the remaster. But hearing that some elements of it at least have aged pretty well makes me more interested in going back.
Yeah, I did, because like 7, it's so weird, and like all the stuff with Cloud, it's so ambiguous and like kind of clumsily told.
The character stuff in Final Fantasy VII is what was great to me. The bigger story around Shinra, I always found to be pretty trite, and like on the nose environmentalism stuff. Which, like, hey, I'm all for that, but just the way it was told felt very amateurish. Even, like, I'm not gonna say even at the time I was a child, but like my memory of it was like that stuff isn't what it was about. It was the character stuff with Cloud and Tifa and with Aerith and all that stuff and Barrett and kind of his journey and all that stuff. So that part of it, that's what I wanted to get out of Final Fantasy VII and replaying it. I have way less of a memory of Final Fantasy VIII, having only played it the one time and not loving it. So I am hoping to get more out of the story in Final Fantasy VIII because it'll feel pretty fresh.
Well, I mean, like part of that too, like Final Fantasy VII, you get a lot of like character backstory stuff. You're not getting a ton of that in 8. The characters are less important than the main thrust of the narrative. I think the focus is more on the scale of the narrative, and it's while it's told at the micro level, I think the way that it is also told on the macro level is very good. I just like the characters are not as interesting as the characters in 7, but I do think that the writing is more consistent and well crafted. I think because it's like it's Squall, Cypher, Selphie, Quistis, Irvine.
Yes, Cypher I liked. I remember Selphie because she was kind of the cutesy Yuffie clone, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and like
She's
the
on Destiny
Riku,
Islands
like there's
and
always
Kingdom
one of
Hearts,
those.
right. Well,
I could not tell you the romantic interest from Final Fantasy VIII.
Rinoa. The Princess Rinoa.
Sure.
She's who Yuna is modeled after.
For sure. Yeah.
Like straight up.
Yes.
But and again, knowing that it's Nomura who did it, who did 8, man, that guy really only has like one idea and just kind of does that over and over again, because like the stuff that goes on with Cypher is just the Riku stuff. It's pretty fucking lame, dude. Like, it's just, he's really just been doing this one thing over and over again, and people have been letting him, and we should stop him. Someone should tell him to stop. But yeah, it's like, all right, main takeaways from 8. I like it still. I recognize it's not one of the best games of 99. I have my problems with it, but I am still really enjoying it despite some frustrations and stuff. And I have gotten like new appreciation for elements that I have forgotten. And I'm glad that I have reclarified some things for myself by playing it. And this guide is much better than my guide for 7, although it's not great. It is a better game guide. This is the Brady Games. I have the Brady Games guide for 8.
Okay.
Just in case folks were wanting to know.
I'll have to use the digital one. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
That sucks. I would love to get the physical guides, but I'm not going to spend that money.
Yeah, it depends on what you get. It can be expensive. The other old game I played, I know we're like crazy on time, but I played Dino Crisis, which I had said I was
crazy
gonna
on
play.
Time, you mean the time we're taking is crazy. We are not on time.
No, yes. Words matter, and I said them badly. I played Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis fucking slaps, bro.
Yeah, you've never played Dino Crisis,
I've never played
correct?
it. This is my first time playing it. I did play it with a guide, but Dino Crisis fucking rules. Where is Dino Crisis? Fucking what's going on with Dino Crisis, bro? And I think I'm gonna find out when I play eventually Dino Crisis 3 why they don't have Dino Crisis anymore. But the first one is so good. Like, the game looks incredible. The detail in the environments, because like, so Final Fantasy VIII's like pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D characters. Dino Crisis is fully 3D, like 3D environments with like the textures pasted on the like polygonal area textures and stuff. The art is so good. It looks awesome, man. And like the animation, the character models all look really, really good. I was so impressed with Dino Crisis. It's weird in a few ways. It's doing some fun kind of switch ups on the Resident Evil formula a little bit here and there.
Right.
But like the models look really, like the dinosaurs especially look really, really good. There aren't very many kinds of dinosaurs, which was to be expected, but I was very impressed with how they looked. The sound design was really good. The music really like ramped up the tension at times. I was like really vibing with some of those soundtracks. They described Dino Crisis as panic horror, not survival horror. Which is, when I was playing, my buddy Cody was watching, every time a dino would come out and be like, I'm panic! I am panic! The horror! But yeah, it looks really good. It feels good. You get to choose, you get to make choices throughout, and it affects what you have to do for large chunks of the game. I did the Rick path all the way through, so I didn't technically get the good ending. There are 3 endings.
And that's rather than playing as the redhead chick?
No, so you play as her, but your 2 squad mates, I think your squad leader, I forget his name, and then your other squad mate, Rick. The squad leader is like always, the mission comes first, like do the mission, and then Rick is always like, I want to find out more of what's like going on here, what happened, we got to take care of the people, like we should rescue the people from our squad, like that's what really matters, not the mission. And so I did the Rick stuff, like the people-centric focus stuff. It's like some of the puzzles I did were different, the order in which I did stuff in the game was different, I went different places in some instances, and then eventually got a different ending. And the 3 endings are like, go do the thing that Rick wants to do, go do the thing the other guy wants to do, or there's a third option where you don't do either of those, you go do this other thing. But I had done all the Rick choices throughout, so I was like, I should do the Rick ending, which was you fucking take off, you get chased by a T-Rex through the water, it swims after you in a fan boat. Like a speed fan boat out of the fucking facility before it goes critical or whatever. The game was awesome, dude. I will say if I didn't have a guide, it would not have been awesome, because a lot of the things I had to do were just like, hey, interact with this wall that doesn't... Like, interact with this panel on the wall that kind of looks like panels on other walls. Like isn't really all that distinguishable from other things in the environment, or like, because it's fixed camera angles, like I would not have known I could walk back there and get to a different screen if it weren't for the guide, like that kind of stuff. I think I would have been really frustrated by. But otherwise, like, I came away from it super positive, and I really want to play the second one, but the second one is pretty expensive. Which
is there a digital version of it? I know you don't want to do that, but just like if that ended up being the
I would rather wait and secure a physical copy as like a treat to myself down the road than go that route.
Holy crap. I just like put it into Amazon, $150.
Yeah.
That seems
what's the
dumb.
price charting on that? Which is, it gives you like an average for a complete in box. Dino Crisis 2 on the original PlayStation, complete in box. Average complete in box price is $110. So that's I would want to get something closer to that. That means that probably if something's priced around that range, it might not be in like perfect condition, but should be in decent condition kind of stuff. Yeah, Dino Crisis 2 is expensive. So that brings me to... I am going to, in the beginning of November 2nd, I'm going to Torg in Columbus, Ohio, which is a retro gaming show where the voice of Master Chief and Cortana will be doing a panel, which is fucking awesome.
That is cool.
So I'm going to go see that panel. I'm going to go with a few of my friends. Kara's going to come along. And I'm going to have a budget for myself. And like all the vendors in the Ohio area will be there selling their old games, and like a bunch of cool shit will be there. Last year there was a shop who does ROM hacks of Sega Genesis games that are like reskins of them. So there's like, I think there's like a Darkwing Duck or a DuckTales game that was reskinned as a Pokemon game. So you play as Pikachu, and like they have their own like Genesis cart with all the art on it and stuff, and one of the hard plastic Genesis cart cases with all the art and like a manual and stuff, and they do like the whole treatment on it. I really hope they're there this year because that sounds fucking cool. They have just like cool shit like that, a bunch of retro stuff. Maybe I'll find a PSP because I'm looking for a PSP. Maybe I'll find an original Xbox. I'm looking for one of those. A 360, also looking for one of those. Because there are a few games that I have come across in my searchings that are for the original Xbox and the original Xbox only. And I really want to play those. But Dino Crisis is on my Torg shopping list for sure.
Gotcha.
I have a bunch of stuff that I want to buy. But I have also bought a couple of things in the interim. So, like I said, I got Final Fantasy VIII. Beautiful copy of it. I got a really nice looking copy of the original Splinter Cell on PS2 because in the Giant Bomb chat for a stream the other day, the Giant Bomb community was trying to fucking tell me Splinter Cell was never good. Like,
interesting.
That's like, look, sometimes that community just has the most based shitty ass takes. That is one of the all-time worst takes for the Giant Bomb community, is that Splinter Cell was never good. So I got the first Splinter Cell game. I'm very excited to play that. I got Rise of the Argonauts. Do you remember this game on Xbox 360? It's like
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's like a bad God of War 3-ish era God of War clone that has more RPG elements. It's like total B game from the 360 era, which is like so in my zone right now. So I got a nice looking copy of that, despite the fact that I don't have an Xbox 360. And then I got Siphon Filter Dark Mirror, Killzone Liberation, and I got some more game guides. I got a Xenosaga 3 game guide. That wasn't fucking cheap, I'll tell you that much. I got a game guide for Siphon Filter 2, which I need to get still. I got the game guides for the 3 Lord of the Rings games, and I found the deluxe Pokemon handbook, which is for the original 151. It's all the Pokédex entries like blown up full size with like color drawings of all the characters of all the Pokemon. It's just like the original 151 Pokédex entries for all the Pokemon and stuff, and like trainer tips and like info on the popular characters from the animated show and stuff. It's just like a really cool, weird kind of Pokemon artifact. So I got that's some of the stuff I got, and then. Last thing I have to talk about, I promise. So you can tell I'm really excited about this stuff. I own cartridges, our cartridges for Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, and Crystal. I don't have Silver, and I know you don't have Silver. And so I think what happened to it is that my friend Cody has it because he has 3 copies of Silver for some reason.
Well, there you go.
So. I'm gonna go visit him next week. We're gonna do some game swapping. He's gonna give me one of his copies of Silver. But throughout this whole process, I popped in those cartridges to my analog pocket and found out that my Gold and Crystal cartridges, the saves no longer save. The battery's dead. Right. So I lost those saves, which is fine. I don't even remember what they were. They weren't particularly great saves, I don't think. So what did I do? I looked up a few YouTube videos. I bought a super cheap soldering kit and a set of batteries. And I taught myself how to solder. And I desoldered the old batteries and soldered on the new batteries. And they work great. So I repaired my cartridges of Pokemon Gold and Crystal. And then I hopped on a Discord call with my buddy Cody and walked him through the process live while he did his cartridges of like Silver and Crystal and all those and stuff, replacing the batteries. So I know how to replace Game Boy batteries now. How cool is that? I feel pretty cool about that.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
That's neat.
I was telling Kelly about it, and she was like, "Dude, how does he learn how to do this stuff?"
You just do it, man.
I was like, watch his YouTube videos.
Yeah, you just do it. Don't be afraid. I did test it out on I was going to test it out on one of my other cartridges, like I don't care about, like Missile Command or whatever. But those don't have batteries because you can't actually save on those cartridges, which is crazy. You just would start them over from the beginning every time.
Right.
But yeah, so I have all the stuff I need, like the security screw bit and all that stuff to replace battery cartridges and cartridge batteries, I should say. And that's pretty fucking cool. And I found a person on eBay who prints and makes new Pokemon boxes and reprints of the manuals.
Okay.
So I got those for all 6 of the original Pokemon games, the boxes and the manuals. And I've also ordered plastic protectors for those boxes. So when they get here, I'll have the carts with working batteries, boxes and manuals, and protectors for red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal. And also,
you got to spend money on something.
Also now Fire Red, which I own I don't remember if I had Fire Red last podcast, but I found a cartridge of Fire Red. I found someone who does a really nice repro box of that. I actually found an original manual for Fire Red as well. So I have that. Yeah. Like, don't rob me.
Right.
People don't come to my house and rob me.
You need to set up some kind of security system.
Yeah, that'll be my next fixation, is how to run a closed
You need
circuit.
to build a bunker
For
all of your
CCTV system for my tiny house that has a hole in the roof because the fucking tree fell. Yeah, dude, I'm enjoying this process so much. It is money.
That's very fun.
It is money, but these are also all games that I'm gonna play. And they bring me great joy.
Yeah,
and
man.
So my message to everybody at home is, if you have a thing that brings you joy, embrace that thing. And don't be embarrassed if it's harmful to another person, don't do it. If it is innocuous and pure and beautiful, then embrace it. And talk about it. Find a group of people who share that passion and talk about it with that group of people. Because that feels really good too.
Yeah. That can often be the hardest part because online discourse is cooked.
Yes. But
it's hard to talk about stuff with strangers.
Yeah. But if people need any tips...
You just never know, man.
If people need any tips on how to repair your Game Boy cartridges, you just let me know.
I'm sure we'll be flooded with emails.
That's right.
All right. Whew. We have to move on because we have more old video games to talk about.
Let's go.
You recently played through every James Bond game.
Well, all right. Every James Bond game, GoldenEye and after, which is 13 games. There are some older James Bond games for I think the Master System had one, the NES had one, Game Boy kind of stuff. There are a couple super, based on the really old 80s movies. The ones I played were GoldenEye and after, which are, to me, the only real, actual James Bond video games that are worth playing, in my mind.
Yes, but there are some, what's his name? Sean Connery James Bond in here, isn't there?
There's one.
Yeah. But that just came out after?
Correct. That was on PS2.
Focused on an old...
Yeah, it was
on
like
an
a throwback.
Old Bond?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I have created a tier list for this. Now, if people don't know how tier lists work, here's a very quick explanation. I have rows here that are S, A, B, C, D, F. F being the worst. S being, S tier, top tier. I have gone through, obviously this is an audio format, so you can't see this. I'm looking at it. I'll do my best to visually walk you through this here. But I have a couple games.
You know what I'll do? I'll, on the show notes on SheaHatesEverything.com, I'll put the image in the show notes.
There you go.
So if you want to, if you want to go check that out, that'll be on my website.
Nice. Good plug. I have games in every letter category. So basically what I did was, after I played it, I went, is this an S game? A, B, C, D, F. And I lumped them in there. And then, if there are multiple games in the B category, left to right, the best B category game is on the left, and the worst B category game is on the right. So, the right ones are kind of a B minus, the left ones are a B plus, and that's kind of how that shakes out. So, I'm going to go worst to best James Bond games of the 13. The worst. Okay, this list also includes 007 Racing on the PlayStation 1, by the way. I did play that game in its entirety. The worst James Bond game.
I've never heard of that game.
The worst James Bond game below 007 Racing is 007 GoldenEye Double Agent or Rogue Agent. That's what it is. A GoldenEye Rogue Agent. No. So this is like an alternate history PS2 game where the very beginning of the game, you're on a helicopter with the James Bond, and he just kind of falls out of the helicopter and dies. And then it's you're 008, I think.
Okay.
And you like join up with the bad guys and like work for did I write down who you work for? No. But you play as a villain, like fighting the other Bond villains for like villain supremacy.
Interesting.
It's a first person.
Does it follow the GoldenEye story?
No,
just from a different.
Not really.
Weird.
It like. All right, so it's a first person shooter on the PlayStation 2. That's the version that I played and own. Unfortunately, it's very clumsy and slow. I thought it was neat that you played as a villain at first. But then also just like the stakes don't feel like I don't know why I'm fighting, like the purpose. Anyways, it was a very straightforward shooter. And by that, I mean, you literally just keep moving forward, killing enemies through corridors over and over and over again. This game has like none of what makes the good Bond game special. Like it has abilities that you use, but you never really need to use them. It's
like what?
So there's a shield ability where like it stops bullets, like a magnet ability that stops bullets.
Okay.
There was one where you could like see where enemies are better.
Are you unlocking these as part of the story?
As part of the story.
Because like in a 007 game, like Q would be making a new gadget for you to use. Is there like a replacement for that in this game? Is there like a bad guy? It's like X. What's one of the other like weirdo goth letters that would be a replacement for Q?
No, so it's given to you by who do you work for? Goldfinger. So you work for Goldfinger. Yeah, you work for Goldfinger and you're fighting against Dr. No. And Goldfinger is like giving you upgrades to your golden eye. Because I guess like you lose an eye and he like implants a golden eye for you or whatever. All right. So what are the? Yeah. So MRI vision, seeing through walls. EM hack, where you can like hack turrets for you, or other electronic systems. A polarity shield, which deflects incoming bullets, and a magnetic field where you get to throw enemies around like a gravity machine thing. But the controls for that are fucking god-awful, dude. They're so bad. Crazy. It feels so bad. The shooting feels terrible. It's also hard because the enemies just never miss you. They're always hitting you. You have health. Like, you're trying to find like, health pickups. Dude, it was such a bad time. That game was such a bad time. It's so uninspired and boring. The art is bad. The music is terrible. The, like, time in between the missions is bad. The cutscene animations are bad. It's such a stupid, trite concept. The abilities aren't interesting because they're not fun gadgets. They're just like, I have to use the polarity shield or I will lose because the enemies won't stop hitting me. It just feels bad. And that's why it is the worst James Bond game. The second worst.
Sounds bad.
Yeah. The second worst James Bond game is 007 Racing. That is also in the F tier. It is so bad. In my notes here, I have that I quit halfway through because I did. But because I'm a fucking gamer, I got back on the horse and I beat it. In that bullet point, I put this has to be the worst one. I played them in chronological order, so I played all the PS1 ones first, obviously, PS2, PS3. So I put in the bullet, this has to be the worst one. Well, I have bad news for you, past future Kyle. You were about to play the actual worst one in Rogue Agent.
At least there's only one that was worse.
Yes. The graphics are terrible. The mission structure, like the objectives that you have to do. There's one mission where you're driving around this like military base, and you have to get close to these things and plant a charge. And like you have to set a mine, and then you have to like get the mine to go off by being close for enough time, and then you have to drive away really fast, but kind of no matter how far away you get, you take damage.
Okay.
And the only health in the area is inside tents, which you have to like shoot to blow up or run into. And when you run into them, you take damage. So you kind of have to like take damage to get health again. And so it's just like this weird health economy in this one level where like I have to do like 9 of these things for the main objective to like blow them up. Every one of them is going to take off so much health. I'm being shot constantly by these other things. These bulldozers are driving around, ramming into me, doing a ton of damage. I can't do anything about those. I can't blow them up. They just do their thing. And there are these towers that are shooting rockets at me, so I have to get those towers down, but I don't start with the rockets I need to get the towers down. I have to run into tents and take damage to get the right rockets to shoot the towers down. It's just... that level was fucking infuriating. And it just...
Sounds
the
great.
whole game was infuriating, because it feels bad. The, like, stupid little quips they have over, like, the audio is awful. There's only, like, one audio track, so when people are talking to you, you can't hear anything else. There are timed missions where you have to drive through a city with an arrow that like doesn't update based on the street you're on. It's just the general direction you have to get to. And it fucking sucks, dude. 007 Racing's a piece of shit. But I beat it and I never have to play it again. It gets an F.
I can see how the completionist it becomes a necessity, but given that it's a completely different genre of game, I feel like you could have gotten away without playing that one.
A weaker man would have. Yeah, but I am strong.
I see that.
Also, 13 is my lucky number, and I wanted to be able to play 13 Bond games.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in the D's. This next game...
So still not good.
These are still bad games. Pretty bad. The worst D is 007 Legends, which is actually the last Bond game that they made. Is the third worst Bond game. This is on the PlayStation 3. It's, in some ways... I have here that it's maybe one of the most uninspired games of the bunch. I think that that goes to Rogue Agent. I think it's the second most uninspired game of the bunch. It's just a really, really terrible Call of Duty campaign that does like some of the best of Bond sequences and villains and stuff. It subs in Daniel Craig for all the other Bonds.
Okay.
Because, they only have one character model. It's just kind of a miserable experience. There's nothing really redeeming about it. It feels really bad. It was also especially disappointing because it was like the last one I had to play. And so it's like, that's the way it goes out. So there's like a little bit of that energy in it of negativity for me. I honestly, I don't have a lot to say about it because of kind of how bad it felt to play.
It's funny. I mean, that game came out in 2012.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a remnant of a bygone era of these like straightforward linear shooter campaigns that just don't really get made anymore, with very few exceptions.
But there are good ones of those. And like,
oh, totally.
And in 2012, there had been so many good ones of those. They had to like look at.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't make one. They couldn't do it. So that one was super disappointing. The next D-ranked Bond game, and this is going to be a surprise to a lot of people, but this is GoldenEye 64.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
This game, I think people have rose-tinted fucking glasses for this game. In the way that people were calling for Final Fantasy VIII for me, like, the campaign in GoldenEye 64 fucking sucks, man. It's a miserable time. It feels terrible to play. Like, it looks bad. It's like kind of a bad adaptation of the movie in a lot of ways. The final level's terrible. Like, the stuff with Trevelyan at the end is awful. That last level sucks up on the catwalks.
The controls are definitely not great. It's because, you know, the era that came out in, they hadn't figured out first-person shooting yet. That's totally fine. And yes, it's ugly, again, because of the era. I kind of like the character models, like, they're really blocky. It kind of looks like you're playing Super Hot at times with, like, 2D JPEGs plastered on polygonal face models. But the stealthiness of it is what I liked.
See, I
like sneaking around.
I just don't think those mechanics really work. They're really clumsy and inconsistent. I just don't think some of those mechanics really work anymore. There's also, like, there are a lot of, like, scripted encounters, like things that you're supposed to do, like your actual objectives. I think, like, some of that stuff is really, really obtuse and not well presented to the player. Yeah, I just had a really bad time with GoldenEye 64.
I also think the biggest reason people love that game is because of the multiplayer.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And so I think that's part of it, that if you're not playing the multiplayer, you're missing out on the best part of that game.
Yeah, and to be clear, obviously, I was playing all of these campaign only, because some of them, like, more than one had multiplayer. But yeah, obviously, I'm only playing the campaigns, and that's all I'm really judging them on. So maybe with multiplayer, GoldenEye 64 would be moved up, but, like, campaign is totally in the D category for me. It was not good. Like, the only thing I really remembered about that was, like, crawling through the duct and dropping into the bathroom. And you do that. It's the first thing you do in the game, and then it just kind of is shitty from then on. Like, it just kind of sucks after that. Yeah, like, a good soundtrack, I think, is probably the best thing I could say about it. Next up is... Oh, which one is this? Sorry, these pictures aren't always the most instructive. Is this Everything or Nothing? I think this is Everything or Nothing. On the PS2, question mark? Yes, Everything or Nothing on the PS2. This was a third-person game, which surprised me because it was the third PS2 game. And the first two PS2 games were first-person, and so it was like going to a third-person perspective, which was weird.
Okay.
It was pretty clumsy. Like, the lock-on was fine for the most part, but the way it did lock-on was a little weird. Like, you lock on, and then there's, like, a reticle you can still move around to kind of, like, finesse the aim a little bit, which didn't always work very well. I do think that narratively, this is maybe one of the stronger ones. They got, like, the full Pierce Brosnan and the full cast to come in and do the voices and stuff. It's also, like, an original Bond story.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so they
that it's not even a movie tie-in, and they got him to come in and
correct,
do it.
Yeah. So, like, they worked out whatever issues they had with contracts on the second one, Nightfire, and then, like, had him on for him and, like, a couple of the other people on for the voices for their original Bond title. It had, like, some, like more elaborate set piece moments than, like, the other PS2 games and stuff. I just think it kind of falls apart because of the actual mechanics of the gameplay. There were some really frustrating boss encounters and, like, scripted sequences in there that, like, the game just didn't feel like the mechanics of it were equipped to deal with their ideas that they had that they wanted to execute on. I think was kind of the main problem. But narratively, this was definitely one of the better ones. I think just as a video game, it fails in a lot of ways, and I think that's why it's in the D category. And it is the highest D, is, you know, kind of the honor that we can give it. And it falls directly behind. This is Yes, Tomorrow Never Dies on the first PlayStation. This is my only C. And I would say this and Everything or Nothing are pretty close. This is also a third-person shooter, but it's on the original PlayStation, so you can imagine how that goes. I actually think the lock-on in this is more reliable than it is in Everything or Nothing, which I think is why I give this one a little bit of a higher rating, because playing it is a little bit better, even though it's a PlayStation 1 game. It's it has like kind of a weird blend between like the Tomb Raider tank controls and like a little bit of a Metal Gear, kind of the loosey-goosey feeling to it.
Yep.
It's like there's a really weird kind of combination of feel there. But once you get a handle on it, it's actually not that bad. But like there are some other issues, like inconsistent hitboxes on like corners and different elements of the environments. That was pretty frustrating because lock on and like there's not a lot you can do about that kind of stuff. So this one is a pretty relatively straightforward retelling of the movie Tomorrow Never Dies with Pierce Brosnan. This does have one of, I think, the funniest moments in any of the Bond games. It's the last sequence in the game where you're on, I don't know if you remember the movie too much, but there's that Tomorrow Never Dies is the one where the villain is on like a boat that's on these like two hydrofoils, and Bond like drives a boat under it and like docks under this boat while it's moving, kind of a thing. And then they're like fighting through this giant boat / submarine at the end. So there's that sequence where you're going through these corridors and stuff at the end of the game. But then when you escape, like the thing's blowing up, you get back to your boat that's docked onto another boat, and then you drive away, and like it's all this like stuff is blowing up and music is going crazy, and then just the last scene, there's just no music, and like James and Wei Lin, like they get into the boat, and James is like, "Let's get out of here," and then there's just no sound of the boat or explosions or anything, and the boat just slowly pulls out of frame. Look, the last thing in the video game is no sound, James like phoning ass in, "Let's get out of here," and the boat slowly pulling out of frame, and that's the end of the game.
That's amazing.
Incredible. Truly incredible. For that moment alone is why it's better than Everything or Nothing. But also, like, it did just, like, it felt a little better. And I do think, like, even though it was a pretty straightforward retelling of the narrative of the movie, I think it was, like, just a more enjoyable playable experience, but still not very good, which is why it's a C.
Yeah, that makes sense, just because, excuse me, the first person shooting, because this was the follow-up to GoldenEye. The first person shooting in GoldenEye was pretty finicky, and moving to third person theoretically makes it easier to sort of manage.
Right.
We did talk about this game with the 1999 games that suck.
Right.
Mostly because it was such a disappointment, at least for me, following GoldenEye and all the fun that I had with the multiplayer, that like it felt like a completely different kind of game.
Well, it totally
which is not what I wanted. Well,
Correct,
yeah, it is a totally different kind of game, which is not what I wanted. But yeah, I think a C feels fair. I have only played a couple of these games, so the ones that I have played where I can chime in, a C feels right for Tomorrow Never Dies. A D for GoldenEye is insane. But you're an insane person with bad opinions when it comes to good video games, as we've discussed on the Games That Suck and Games That Don't Suck podcast.
I respect your opinion that my opinion is bad.
Right. I do not respect your opinion, just to be clear.
That's fine. I respect that you don't respect it. So all right, I'm going to say right now, the rest of these James Bond games are B's or higher. So these games are decent or better.
System works.
So the worst B game, which is still a fine game, is From Russia with Love. This is the Sean Connery one on PS2. This is this the final PS2? Yes, this was the last PS2 game, the fourth and last PS2 game. It's not bad, right? They got actual Sean Connery to voice him, and apparently he recorded all of his VO from like his summer home in the Bahamas or some bullshit.
That's
but
hilarious.
They still got him, which is funny.
I'm sure he's putting in max effort.
He's not, but it is Sean Connery. It's another third-person lock-on shooter, like Tomorrow Never Dies, but it's actually kind of fun because like it has a cover system, an action roll, melee attacks, they're like button prompts. It goes back to that like good campy Bond stuff, like not taking itself seriously, campy Bond stuff. And so I think like for the most part, the gameplay actually kind of worked reasonably well. The driving's not as good as it was in Everything or Nothing, because actually something I forgot to mention in Everything or Nothing, the Need for Speed people did the driving stuff in that game.
Okay.
So actually the driving in that's pretty good, but so the driving in this one's not as good as that. But it's
they did not do 007 racing, I assume.
They sure didn't. God, I wish they had. There are a bunch of like turret sequences that are not good. Unfortunately, that part didn't age well. And like you have to control the turret with the left analog stick, which fucking sucks, dude. Like aiming with the left stick feels so bad. Overall, though, it was a pretty fun one. Like some like small frustrations here and there. Like objectives aren't always 100% clear. But this one actually does implement a mini map with the objectives marked, which was helpful. But like there are a couple levels that are actually kind of complicated that are more like open areas, almost like a Hitman level. And I could have really benefited from like a full area map at some points. The jetpack sequences are like a fun power fantasy. Like the Bond jetpack is like a classic, like really campy, dumb thing. Like the jetpack with the machine pistol on it kind of a thing.
Sure.
It's like flying around through these aqueducts, shooting other dudes in jetpacks, flying through factories, blowing shit up. That stuff's fun. It's a relatively faithful retelling of the story from the movie. They obviously just like extend out the action sequences for the video game. There was some more recasting that was done. I think Sean Connery was the only original person they got on it.
That was their entire budget.
Yeah. I think this is the one. So down in Georgia, do you guys have Cinemark theaters?
That does not sound familiar.
Okay. So here in Ohio, like a big movie theater chain is Cinemark. And before every movie, I forget her name. There's this lady that pops up and she has like her own news show where she covers bullshit.
Maria Menounos.
Thank you. She's the Bond girl in this video game.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. And so there's like extras on the disc and there's like interviews with the people. They interview her and she's like, yeah, like I was so excited because it's like, when you get an offer to like be a Bond girl, like who wouldn't want that? Like that, it's like, that's hilarious. But you're the Bond girl for this video game.
Her entire career has been a host. Like I will be filling up my
from Russia with Love on the PS2, where she's the Bond villain gal.
I'll be putting gas in my car at the gas station, and the little TVs she'll like pop up to like host the news there, or like. And then at the end, she promotes her health and wellness podcast. Yep. And then when I come back a couple months later, she's doing it, but she's promoting her like celebrity news podcast.
Always
like I think that's all she fucking does is because none of it ever hits, and she just keeps making new things.
Incredible.
Maria Menounos.
Yes, she's the Bond, like the evil woman in this one.
That is awesome.
Yes, which I lost my shit when I found that out. Cody and I were both like our jaws on the floor, just like holy shit.
Does it look like her? I mean, the graphics probably aren't awesome. But is it like her likeness?
Not like so. She has like a ponytail and is in like a flight suit the whole time, so not really. Okay. But it's definitely like it's a young her, obviously.
Got it.
So that's the worst B. From Russia with Love is a totally reasonable, fun, campy experience. The next B game above From Russia with Love is actually the first PS3 game, Quantum of Solace. It's first-person shooter, which does this... when you enter cover, it goes into third person. You can do some third-person shooting there. Otherwise, it pulls back into first person when you leave cover. This was made by Treyarch. So like the shooting,
I feel like I knew that. That's good. That's wild.
Yeah, the shooting actually feels pretty good. Like it plays a lot like a slightly worse Call of Duty game. The graphics are pretty bad. Like, the particle effects and fire explosions, though, are actually pretty good. I think that's like, that's the PS3's kind of big claim to fame. So like that stuff's actually pretty good. The actual graphics aren't great, but as far as playing a video game, it was pretty good. This was also the first Bond game where there was a regenerating health mechanic, a la Call of Duty. All the other ones up to that point had been like, I'm finding health packs, I have a health bar kind of a deal. However, this game is so weird because Quantum of Solace is not a great Bond movie. It's like people say it's like one of the worst Craig movies.
Correct.
And like the one they should have made a game of was Casino Royale, because that movie is fucking incredible. However, this game released, I think, like right along with Quantum of Solace. And so, because there's not a lot of interesting shit that happens in Quantum of Solace, you play like 3 Quantum of Solace missions, and then Bond like gets hurt and then is like telling the main girl about what happened prior to him, about what happened to him prior to the events of the movie. And so then you do like 8 or 9 Casino Royale missions. You just play through Casino Royale, and then there's one more Quantum of Solace mission at that like hotel in the desert at the end of the movie. It's
like they knew.
Yeah, they knew. It's crazy. It's like literally there's like 3 Quantum of Solace missions, one of them of which is like has nothing to do with the movie, is totally made up. And it's an excuse for them to have this conversation about then doing all of these Casino Royale missions, and then they just do the big thing at the end.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, like the game was totally fine. It played a lot like the Call of Duty, didn't look great, but it was cool because it was kind of like a Casino Royale game. That's kind of what I wanted, really.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of liked it. I was surprised that I had never given it a shot up to this point, because like Treyarch made it, and I feel like that's something I would have known at the time, and have since forgotten. But I was actually like pretty happy with my time spent on that one.
Nice.
The highest tier B game is 007 Bloodstone, which is the second to last one. Yes, on the PS3, before Legends. This is the only other original Bond story game other than Everything or Nothing. Everything else was like an adaptation of a movie in some way. This one is fully third person. But I like the snap aiming worked reasonably well. Otherwise, it's pretty clunky. It still doesn't look great. Some of the environments are actually pretty impressive. Like there's like reflective surfaces on like some like the marble flooring and stuff. Like some of that stuff looks pretty good. Again, like the parts of the tech where the PS3 like really kind of like showed its powerhouse, like all of its processor stuff.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like it just didn't look super great. However, this one, more so than the Quantum of Solace game, feels like it's put together like an actual movie. Like the pacing of it feels like I am playing through a movie with like some slightly extended action sequences, where like the Quantum of Solace one was like, oh, we're just retelling stuff from the movie. Bloodstone is cool because it's like an original story that is paced like a movie. That it was impressive in that way, I think. And I wasn't super into it at first because like the snap aiming, the third person stuff, I was just kind of like, ugh. I've been liking these first person games. Back to third person, this sucks. But I locked in eventually, and I came around on it after a few missions, like as the story kind of picked up its like momentum, and I like kind of understood the flow of it, and it was pretty cool. There were some really cool sequences in that one, and I ended up really liking it. I still think it's a high B for me. Then, first A tier Bond game.
Oh boy, we're getting to the bangers.
That's
here.
right. 007 GoldenEye Reloaded. The way GoldenEye should have been on the N64.
I don't remember this game.
So they remade GoldenEye with Daniel Craig as Bond.
Right. Okay.
Yes. And this one, it's building off the foundations that Treyarch made with Quantum of Solace. It came out after Quantum of Solace on PS3. This one actually looks pretty good, especially I played the PS3 version, which was a port of a Wii game, which makes the good looking visuals even more impressive. Like, they did some actual work there.
Yeah.
This one is PlayStation Move compatible. So,
all right.
Like a normal person with normal hobbies and a normal outlook on life, I said, yes, I will purchase a PlayStation 3 full PlayStation Move set and, what is that called? The rifle controller holder.
Naturally.
I bought that and played it that way for a mission and a half. That was not it, man. PlayStation Move Sharpshooter is what it was called. That was not it. That was not the way to play that game. That was a bad
Not the way to
experience.
play any game.
It was so bad. VR has ruined me for that kind of stuff, dude, because VR is just so good. Playing it with the shitty, just was a little bit of latency on the input, having to hold that rifle up for 40 minutes at a time. My back was killing me. My arms were tired. I just couldn't dial in the right dead zone on when to turn within keeping the reticle in. You can never just put your gun down to rest your arms, because then it looks down at the ground. It's just, there's so many bad things about the PlayStation Move experience with that game.
Amazing.
After the first mission and a half, I was like, Cody, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. So I played it with a controller and really, really liked it. For me, this was up to that point, felt like the most modern of their first-person shooter games. It felt like it was actually made in current times. Quantum of Solace felt good as a shooter, but it didn't look very good, and it was kind of archaic in other ways, and weird in other ways. The GoldenEye 007 Reloaded felt like a modern first-person shooter with a story kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it was that I can understand why people wouldn't like it, because it's that what's the Mad, how they would put Mad World in every trailer for a game for 5 years.
Of course.
It's kind of,
we have years to thank for that.
Yeah, it's the Mad Worldification of the GoldenEye story, where it's just everything's brown and gray and industrial. But I kind of liked that. I kind of liked that about it. And also for me, it was
just because it was such a throwback.
Yeah, but also the way they reimagined some of the areas, even while it's brown and grungy or whatever, it felt like a real place that would exist in a way that obviously the original GoldenEye locations are comic book or they're a caricature of what a place like that would look like a villain lair kind of thing. It makes it more, because it's the Daniel Craig Bond, right? It's more grounded or whatever, less fantastical, less bombastic, and it worked better as a first person shooter because of that. And I just really, really liked it. It's pretty straightforward. It could have used more of the gadget stuff, but the shooting felt really good. I thought it was paced really well. Again, I liked seeing how they transformed some of the locations from the original GoldenEye and how they did that last sequence and stuff. I was super high on that one. I thought Reloaded was really good, especially once I put down the Move controllers.
Yeah, that sounds okay.
Yeah,
the Move does not sound okay. That I could have told you ahead of time.
It was
to not do that.
It was money well spent. It was for the memes. It was hilarious because so the way I did it, because I've been sharing my gameplay with Cody over Discord, and you could also have your camera on. So I had my webcam showing me standing playing it, and then also sharing the gameplay of it, and so Cody could get the picture-in-picture of me, my fat ass playing this game. It's so stupid. So GoldenEye 007 Reloaded is definitely an A from me. Take for that what you will. The best A game of the 007s is World Is Not Enough on the first PlayStation. This game fucking rules. It is really good. It might actually be an S tier, but just for the sake of separating it between the last two, it can stay at like an A++ kind of a deal. Like, World Is Not Enough is so good. It's first person. It's much more like the original GoldenEye, because it's like the release order was GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, the third person one, and then World Is Not Enough. So it was like, okay, we're back to first person. Like, it's all about the like the objectives and the gadgets, some light stealth stuff. There's a bunch of different types of missions that you're going on, a bunch of different types of objectives for you to do. It controls way better than like GoldenEye or Tomorrow Never Dies, like where you have 2 sticks for aiming and moving, right? So like full first person control. It's the first like real, when I think of what an FPS is, it's the first one of those of the Bond games, and it's just really, really good. It's again a relatively straightforward retelling of the movie, but just the way it plays, I think still absolutely holds up. I think World Is Not Enough was a tremendous time. I had a lot of fun with that one. And really, like, honestly, like, that one held up big time for me, even as an older title.
I don't remember this. Like, because I played the first 2. I don't remember playing this one.
Like, it's possible that people skipped it, right? Because they felt betrayed by Tomorrow Never Dies.
That could totally be what happened.
But yeah, like, World Is Not Enough is really, really good.
I definitely remember the movie because Denise Richards is in it.
Well, yeah.
Schwing?
What?
Teenage Shea? Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was all about Denise Richards.
All right. Speaking of S-ranked Denise Richards, the last 2 Bond games are S-ranks. These are legitimately phenomenal video games, not just for James Bond games, just for video games in general. So, the worst of the 2 is Agent Under Fire, the first PS2 Bond game. This is also the first Bond game without any likenesses, so it was its own its own original story, its own original thing. Like there was no Brosnan voice, like everyone was different, but it was still the character of James Bond. From the jump, it is wacky in that classic Bond campy way. It's so fun. It's all about the gadgets. Like, yeah, there's plenty of shooting, but like you're able to use gadgets in combat. Like there are different ways of getting through the environments based on the gadgets you want to use. It was so fucking awesome. And the best part about the game, every time you do something cool, the ba-da plays and a little 007 icon thing pops in the corner. That's amazing. Like every time you blow up a barrel and kill a group of enemies, ba-da. Every time you like grapple watch your way up onto a ledge, ba-da. Like it's over. So like not
scripted stuff, just like randomly as you're playing the game.
Yeah, just when you do a cool thing, the stinger plays, and it's the perfect reward. It's so good.
That's great.
It's all you need.
It's like the Modern Warfare 2 level up song.
Totally. Yeah, it's totally that. It hits me in the same way, 100%. It's so like this game is so good. It's so much fun. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's having so much fun with the gadgets. The objectives are pretty straightforward, but that doesn't really matter because you can go about things a few different ways, like navigating through the environments. There's some light stealth stuff that you can do. It controls pretty well for like an early PS2 first-person shooter. Like, it's just a great fucking time. Like, the missions are nice and short. They don't overstay their welcome. I just had an awesome time with Agent Under Fire. And the best Bond game is even better than that. And the best Bond game is, you guessed it, the only one that's left, Nightfire on the PS2, the follow-up to Agent Under Fire. Fun fact about this one, it started as a direct follow-on to Agent Under Fire, but partway through, they figured out all the contract weirdness with the likenesses and the actors, and so they then had to, like, pivot and change the evil corporation from the first Agent Under Fire to be, like, a new evil corporation.
Right.
So they could use all these likenesses, and, like, they got Pierce Brosnan in to replace the dude from Agent Under Fire. But it is like, it's a direct story continuation. They just like switch one of the villains or whatever and then put Pierce Brosnan in it for the most part.
So like, is it like it retcons it?
No,
like they
not
treat
really.
it like it's the same, or no?
They just treat it as if he's always been Brosnan.
Yeah, well, I would say that's retconning it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. A fun little tidbit that goes along with that factoid is that there's an underwater section, and there's a ship that you take your submarine car through, and that ship has the logo of the evil corporation from Agent Under Fire on it. So it's like just like a fun nod to the fact that it used to be a direct follow-on to Agent Under Fire's story before they changed the villain organization. But in general, it just kind of elevates everything that Agent Under Fire does. The controls are a little bit tighter. Like, the gadgets are a little more bombastic and fun. You're doing a little more with them. The vehicle missions are better. Like I said, there's like that submarine car mission. Like, that stuff's all really fun. The levels have a little bit more to them. They're more complex. The communication on the story is a little bit better. Like, the way they chime in during the missions and stuff is a little more consistent. There's a lot more chatter from your companions and stuff to like propel you through the narrative. The game actually looks pretty good, especially for like a PS2 game, so I think it definitely looks better. It also has like one of my favorite mission starts, which is you're going to that like party in that mansion up on top of a mountain, like a snowy mountain, and you start on the path up to it, and you can like either shoot your way up to the mansion or like shoot your way in through the front doors. You can hop into the truck that drives under the bridge you're on, the arch you're on at the beginning, and like sneak your way in, or you can like take this like grapple platforming route around the side and come in through like one of the side entrances. And like that whole level has like a bunch of different ways you can go about it, and like that's just like, to me, is like the quintessential Nightfire level is that one. It's just a really awesome level. I also think like they kind of fine-tuned some of the stealth mechanics. So, like, stealth is actually a little more doable for sections of the game. Nightfire is it is absolutely 100% hands down the best Bond game that they have made. And it's really just because it's like a better Agent Under Fire. So I think like both of those games are just tremendous games, like not just Bond games, but video games, like on the whole. So that is my James Bond tier list.
It's such a bummer because with the like chasing the movie tie-in shit, it's all, different studios are making these games. They're changing genres of like, we're third person now, it's first person now, we're back to third person now, we're back to first person. It's hard to get some momentum.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's not surprising to hear that the best game is one of the only direct sequels that is intentionally made as a direct sequel.
Yep. Totally. 100%.
That's funny. Well, walk us through the bottom, like worst to best, just names.
Right.
And again, like if people want a visual version of this, head to SheaHatesEverything.com. In the show notes, I'll put the screenshot of the actual tier list.
Yeah. So in the F tier worst, we have GoldenEye Rogue Agent on the PS2, followed by 007 Racing on the PlayStation 1. D tier, we have 007 Legends on the PS3, GoldenEye on the 64, Everything or Nothing on the PS2. C tier, we have Tomorrow Never Dies on the original PlayStation. B tier, From Russia with Love on the PS2, Quantum of Solace, Treyarch game, on the PS3, and then Bloodstone 007 on PS3. A tier, GoldenEye 007 Reloaded on the PS3, and then The World Is Not Enough on PlayStation 1. S tier, 007 Agent Under Fire on PS2, and then the best S tier, 007 Nightfire on the PS2.
It also makes sense that the two best games are PS2 games.
Hell yeah, dude.
That's like
PlayStation
the best
2 is the best
console.
console. Yes, the best console of all time.
Yeah.
Oh man,
there's a tier list for you.
Oof.
In the future, we'll do a tier list on best consoles.
Yeah.
With every console. Yes, that is very fun. I'm sure that was super fun to play through all of those things.
It was a great time. It was a frustrating time. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, as they say.
Would love some feedback. We were chatting before we started recording. Tier lists are super fun to do. They can also be a difficult thing to do in an audio format.
Yeah.
Send us an email, like, if you like this type of conversation. Like, hey, if we wanted to do, we talked about Final Fantasy VIII. If we wanted to do a Final Fantasy game tier list, would that be fun to listen to? Or do you feel like you need the visual format of seeing us talk about it, seeing us rank things on the screen?
Right.
Because I kind of had the idea, with Kyle doing this tier list, I was like, man, it'd be fun to have that become a recurring segment. Just like we'd probably hate that game, we'd probably forget that game. We're always looking for like additional segments, and since we're trimming down in the podcast, it gives us time to do stuff like this.
Yeah.
That's a little more engaging, a little more back and forth and fun. So if that's something that you would like, shoot us an email, info@shadeseverything.com. Also feel free to send us ideas for like cool tier lists to do. We've got a million ideas, but we would always be happy to get more. Speaking of emails,
yes,
let's read and talk about some emails. So as I mentioned, if you want to send us an email about anything, send it to info@SheaHatesEverything.com. We will read it. We will talk about it. We will maybe make fun of you depending on what the content of the email is.
Oh, we'll definitely make fun of you.
Yeah, that's fair. Our first email comes in from John R. Subject line, Sony games. Hey, Shea and Kyle. I like the new shorter format. I was okay with the longer format too, but whatever makes the podcast more fun for you both is the right approach, in my opinion.
Thanks, John.
I would tend to agree with that, John. The biggest thing I'll miss is your take on the news. I don't follow games as closely, so I often hear about things from this podcast. So my question, in case you didn't already talk about it, and then I love this.
Yeah.
What is Sony doing?
That's a big question, brother.
Where are their games?
Yeah.
I know they just released Astro Bot and Concord, which was a colossal failure, but unless I missed something, they don't have anything else coming out this year. I watched a recap of their recent showcase, and the only exciting thing I saw for next year was the new Ghost of Tsushima sequel. It looks great, but I was expecting more. With Microsoft bringing their games to other platforms, does Sony care less about making the big exclusives because they know there isn't as much competition anymore? Curious for your thoughts, John R. Yeah, first of all, appreciate the feedback on the podcast format.
Yeah.
We feel good about the length. We know like the news thing is tricky. If they're like our stories that we feel like are relevant, we can always bring them up if we feel passionate about it.
Right.
The other thing that you listeners can do is exactly what John did. If something happens in the news or like there's a big conversation happening that you would like us to discuss or you would like to give your own opinion on, and we could talk about that, send us an email.
Yeah.
info@chaseeverything.com. The effort to strip out the news is for timing. We end up losing relevance on a lot of stories, and it sort of it feels like arbitrary and sort of obligation rather than us being interested and passionate about the news story. This is a great example of what we would like to do with the news, which is how do we turn what's happening in current events in gaming into a conversation topic?
Yeah.
Like the state of Sony. So I went and pulled all of the Sony studios and what they're currently being worked on as of like September.
Okay.
So a lot of this comes from Reddit. So like grain of salt, something might be wrong. A lot of it's based on rumor, but also like fairly trustworthy. It's from like the r/gaming leaks and rumors, which is generally pretty trustworthy. So for their first party studios, in alphabetical order, Team Asobi just launched Astro Bot. They've announced DLC for Astro Bot coming out this fall. Sony Bend is working on a new IP, apparently building on some of the systems from Days Gone, might have multiplayer, very rumor mill, not announced. Bluepoint Games, which historically has been their like HD remaster studio. They did like Nathan Drake collection, things like that. They are working on a new IP, unannounced.
Right, yeah.
Bungie is continuing to support Destiny 2-ish. They are also continuing to work on Marathon.
Right.
Ish. But there is a lot of problems happening at Bungie.
Yes. Sony in general, but yes.
Fire Sprite. So these folks have done a lot of VR stuff. There's another game that I can't remember that they were working on. But they're working on like a horror narrative game, codenamed Project Heartbreak. Speculation is that this is a sequel to Until Dawn, or somehow related to the work that was being done from Supermassive on the Until Dawn game.
Right.
Could be VR, maybe, since they've done VR. Who knows?
Oof.
Firewalk. Just released Concord.
I don't know if Firewalk is going to exist for very long.
Yeah. Guerrilla Games. Dude. They have the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster that they're working on with some other folks. They have the new Lego Horizon game that they're working on with some other folks.
Right.
They are definitely working on another Horizon game, whether that's Horizon 3, whether that's this rumored online multiplayer live service game that maybe was canceled, but maybe isn't canceled. Who really knows?
Make another Killzone.
That's not going to happen.
Please, God, make another Killzone.
No one except id is going to make a like first-person shooter campaign-focused video game. It's just not going to happen. Haven Studios. They were the ones working on a live service extraction shooter called Fair Game, which felt very The Finals in aesthetic. It looked super generic. The feedback was really bad. We have not heard anything else since they revealed it. Housemarque. These are the like Resogun. What was that spooky game they made that was really good? What was it?
Housemarque Games. They did Returnal.
Yes. That's the one. They have another game coming out that they've been working on for the last couple of years. Not announced. Insomniac. This gets tricky. There were all the leaks last year.
Right.
They have officially announced Wolverine.
Yes.
A couple of years ago. That is the only thing they have announced. According to the leaks, they are working on a Venom offshoot from Spider-Man 2. They are allegedly also working on the actual ending to that trilogy, Spider-Man 3. They are allegedly working on another Ratchet and Clank game. And then they are allegedly working on an X-Men game. If they are working on all of those games, that is like the next 20 years of Insomniac games. They are generally a multi-game studio. I don't think they're like completely bifurcated into different teams, but they have worked on multiple projects at once. Like they were working on Rift Apart at the same time as they were working on all these Spider-Man games.
Right. And
but
like when they were doing Infamous, like they were also working on Ratchet and Clank stuff as well. And
that was Sucker Punch.
Oh, Infamous was Sucker Punch. Shit.
Yeah. But they were working on Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man at the same time. So the point in saying that is they're not working on Wolverine and Spider-Man 3 and Venom and an X-Men game and a Ratchet and Clank game all at the same time. That's not happening. So what they're actually working on, we literally don't know. We haven't heard hide nor tail of Wolverine since they announced it. We don't have a release date. We have never seen gameplay. Who the fuck knows what Insomniac is doing? Media Molecule. Recently, I guess like last year, they had shut down the Dreams server. They are working on a new IP. They have said that it's more of a game than it is a creative tool, which is slightly disappointing because they've always been on like the cutting edge. You know, they did Little Big Planet.
Right.
They've always been on the cutting edge of like using games as a way of helping people make games.
Right.
But Dreams did not do super well.
It did not, unfortunately.
I think they did the Sackboy game. I don't recall because I know they didn't do Little Big Planet 3. That was a different studio. Mm-hmm. But point being, like, their games have not sold great since Little Big Planet 2. So if it's a new IP that's more of a traditional, in quotes, video game, that could be exciting. Maybe they could, I bet you they could make a really good mascot platformer.
Yeah.
Because they already have. That would be fun. Naughty Dog have multiple single-player projects, in quotes, that they're working on. Apparently, this is The Last of Us Part 3 and a new IP. They were working on that Last of Us multiplayer game. that has been canceled, officially been canceled. They could bring it back in some capacity, but they have pivoted. I imagine they are like primarily working on The Last of Us Part 3. It's also tough, right? Neil Druckmann's getting into TV stuff. A lot of these like auteur game creators like a Kojima, like they like to get involved in other mediums, and it pulls them away from games sometimes. So I would argue that the future of Naughty Dog is a little bit in flux. One of their senior leaders left last year. They've been re-releasing those two fucking games for the last several years.
Yeah.
Someone posted an infographic of like all of their games that they've released in the last decade, and it's really depressing.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're all amazing games.
Yeah.
Well, not all of
shut
them
up.
are amazing games, but that's subjective. Like like since 2013, it was like The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, The Last of Us PS4 HD, Lost Legacy, Last of Us 2, Last of Us 2 HD, Last of Us 1 HD, Nathan Drake collection. Like it's, that's not chronological, but it's basically they've made The Last of Us and Uncharted, and that's fucking it for like 12 years. And that's a little depressing.
And it's like,
because there are a lot of really talented people there, and I would like to see them try something new.
And it's a really tough studio to work for publicly because it's like this in a lot of places, but it feels like especially Naughty Dog has like a magnet for hate mongers, or like there's just something about their games and like Neil Druckmann that just like farms social media negativity and like death threats and just the worst of the worst coming out and targeting those people who work on those games. So I do not think working at that studio is an easy job.
Yeah, sure. Now, I think that is a Last of Us 2 problem. I think Last of Us 2 created that problem, and Neil Druckmann's reaction to that problem created a problem for him. Not saying any of that is justified, but I don't think that's a Naughty Dog issue, and I don't think it's a historic issue with Naughty Dog. Like, the being mad about women in games, that has only existed for the last 4 years. Like, in a lot of ways, The Last of Us Part 2 was the first big time that people were mad about a woman in a video game. Like, there was no negative reaction to Lost Legacy. None.
Yeah.
Sure, you can find the fringes of assholes that talk about it, but no one was talking about it at scale. It was really Part 2 that started that for Naughty Dog and generally for like video games. And now we just live in a world where that's never going to go away.
Right.
So I don't think it's a Naughty Dog problem. It's just the Last of Us Part 2 was like the linchpin issue.
When I say that, I more so mean like when you say one of the creative leads left, future in flux, just to add like a little bit like, yeah, that would be a tough place to work for right now. That's true. And not only because of that, which is also valid, but just the reality of the expectation is high.
Pretty high.
Yeah, even from the
like
people who are your champions in the community, right? Like,
I mean, if we look back at the era 2013 to 2017, if you want to include Part 2, many people do, in terms of like the golden age of Naughty Dog, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy, those were, and even Part 2, like those were all Game of the Year contenders. And granted, Part 2 came out 4 years ago. It hasn't been that long. But in that era, Naughty Dog was far and away the premier PlayStation first-party studio.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not anymore. People do not view them that way anymore because all they've been doing is re-releasing the Last of Us games.
Right.
Like, if you ask someone who the best, most popular Sony studio is, they're going to say Insomniac or Sucker Punch or Sony Santa Monica. They might say Guerrilla, maybe. Probably not.
Probably not.
People like Horizon, but not at the same
Not
level.
that
But those
much.
other three, those other three are definitely going to come out before someone would say Naughty Dog, I believe.
Yeah, maybe.
So that puts a lot of pressure on whatever this new IP is.
Right.
Anyway, so that's Naughty Dog. Polyphony Digital, Gran Turismo. There isn't a new one as far as we know, but that's what they're going to make next. Sony San Diego, they make the MLB The Show games. Theoretically, they're working on the next one. Sony Santa Monica, they've said that they're working on a bunch of different things. Maybe more God of War. Maybe a sci-fi game. Some kind of new IP. I don't know. They haven't really given a lot of detail. It's far off. Sucker Punch. Ghost of Yotei. I guess I should figure out how to say it because it's like my most anticipated game of all time. Ghost of Tsushima is like my number 12 favorite game ever made. So Yotei. As John mentioned in his email, that's coming out next year until it gets delayed. So we know about that one at least.
Right.
And then there's a new studio that I believe we talked about this. I don't remember if this was one of the news stories that made the cut or after we had stopped talking about the news. But with what's going on with Bungie, Sony has absorbed part of Bungie into a new studio. That studio was working on a new game separate from Destiny 2, separate from Destiny 3 or Marathon. It was an offshoot, or the rumor is that it was an offshoot of Destiny, but it was a different style of game.
Yeah, it was like a spin-off game, yeah.
Yeah, so that studio has been absorbed into Sony PlayStation Studios. So it's no longer part of Bungie, is now part of Sony. No fucking idea what that is for sure. If it's still gonna be Destiny, if they're gonna try to decouple that, no idea. And that's everything.
So
you'll notice there's not a lot that we know.
Right. So the philosophical answer to your question of where are their games is I think in some instances their games don't really exist yet because Jim Ryan just left and his big push was live service. And so a lot of those teams were working on live service titles. And that wasn't.
We know Guerrilla was, and we know Naughty Dog was,
and that wasn't working for them, and so they have had to basically lose out on a lot of that work and trash it, or repurpose what they can towards a new thing, and so they've all had to pivot. So we don't know what the games are because we thought we knew, and now those aren't happening anymore, and that was kind of one of the big effects of Jim Ryan leaving because that was his championing push was live service, and then the bubble burst because of course it was going to. The market was incredibly saturated, and also the market didn't really understand why people liked those games to begin with. It was very much a lightning in a bottle situation, and people just weren't emulating the successes of Fortnite and PUBG in a way that really excited folks. And
also just emulating that isn't enough.
Correct.
Because people are already playing Fortnite for 80 hours a week. They literally don't have time for another one. Why do we keep doing this?
Yeah.
Why do we keep chasing the thing that is popular? People are already playing the thing that's popular.
Right.
Make a new thing. And then that might become popular.
And that's all Jim Ryan really had to offer. Publicly anyways, was a trend chasing. And I mean, to be fair, also Sony has chased trends for a very long time in the hardware market and other places, but also doing that in the software as your primary pillar is really, it was a dangerous gamble and it didn't work out. And so that's why Jim Ryan's not there anymore. He golden parachuted the hell out of there. And so
woohoo.
Yeah, well, yippee. And so we just don't know a whole lot, and it's gonna be a long time before the world is right after COVID and Jim Ryan.
But I don't think that we can just blame COVID on it.
No.
We're still feeling the effects. It'll still be a couple more years that we're going to feel the effects of that. But just the AAA gaming industry has changed so much.
And advertising is different, and labor is very different now, and the way you have the way you have to make games is different. The expectations are different. The technology is different, and people are reeling.
The budgets are different.
People are reeling from that, and in a lot of cases, the budgets are wrong. Because insights in the market are wrong, and so it's just a fucking mess, man.
something will have to change because the AAA industry is not sustainable. That's why you're seeing Microsoft pivot so hard, is because the time and the money isn't worth it. It just isn't. AAA games used to be $10 to $20 million, 3 to 4 years of development. Now they're $150 million of investment, and a lot of times 6+ years in terms of time. So you release a game that sells hotcakes and you want to launch a sequel. Hey, guess what? That sequel's coming out in 7 years in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, right? Like the Spider-Man games are a good example in opposition to that, because they kept the game in the same exact environment and changed some mechanics, but a lot of the work was already done. And that's the great thing about a sequel. But if you look at a game like Ghosts of Yotei, it'll be 5-ish years in between those, which is assuming it doesn't get delayed, which is a decent amount of time, not an exorbitant amount of time. And it's a totally brand new area. It's going to have new systems.
Yeah.
Like that's an outlier in terms of how these games are being made. That's the reality. That's why so many of these things are unannounced and rumored, or were announced 2 years ago and are now just kind of sitting, because that's how long it takes to make a AAA game. And Sony has not done a good job with their first-party studios of creating a balanced ecosystem of game sizes and experiences. They have over-levered, and have for a long time, over-levered on single-player, narrative-driven experiences, which take a long time and are very expensive. They don't have a lot of live service games. They don't have a lot of open-world games. They don't have a lot of multiplayer games. And that variety creates different revenue streams for one, but also different types of experiences for players that can be attractive for two.
Right.
The games that Sony makes are my favorite style of game.
Yes.
For me personally.
That's why I love Sony's, because they make games that are just for me.
100%. But then they come out with something like Astro Bot, which is not traditionally a Sony type of game, which is why it's such a bummer that it hasn't sold amazingly, because they need to be doing more of that.
Oh yeah.
A game that can be made in 2 years with a much smaller budget by a much smaller team that can iterate faster and get sequels out more, so that they have more fucking games for people to play and get excited about. And then they don't have to fill the gaps with third-party publishing exclusivity deals, which they do so much of.
Yeah.
So many games launch with 6-month, 3-month, 1-year exclusivity deals, console exclusivity deals with Sony, and that's just bad for gamers.
Right.
Like, that's bad for consumers. No one benefits from that.
Right.
Owning a PlayStation...
It makes people like Sony less if they don't have a PlayStation. Like, it makes them actually... Because Sony does it like, oh, maybe they'll buy a PlayStation if we do this. It makes people actually... Like, people are fickle. It makes them less likely to buy a PlayStation, because they're like, man, Sony's always fucking snatching them up. A certain subset of people. Like...
Yeah, they wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work in some capacity. But the point is, like, if you own a PlayStation and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth launches with a 6 months exclusivity on PlayStation 5, you don't benefit from that. You don't gain anything from that.
Right.
People only lose with that type of business that is happening. Theoretically, the only thing you gain is that Microsoft didn't close that deal instead. That's the only gain that you get. But as we've seen, I don't think Microsoft's going to be signing a lot of those deals.
No.
Because they don't really give a shit about video games anymore. Let's be real. Clearly has not been a moneymaker for them. They just spent a fuck ton of money, and Phil Spencer's not long for this world. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, John. I think that the most simple answer is that they are working on a lot of games. But games take a really long time to make and are really expensive to make. And also, to Kyle's point, many of their bigger studios were working on games that they're no longer working on.
Yeah.
And so that only costs more money. Yeah, it takes more time.
If not starting from the ground up, then starting, with if they were 50% towards the game and they're maybe able to repurpose 15% of that, then they're starting at 15%.
Right.
That's kind of where it's at.
Yeah. But I don't think it's, to your question, John, I don't think it's about Sony caring less about exclusives because they don't feel as much competition. One, I just, the timeline doesn't make sense for that. Like, these games have been in development for years, well before what Microsoft has done over the last year. But I think if Sony starts getting lazy the way they did with the PS3 launch because of a lack of competition, we'll see that in a couple of years. Like, you know, already the way that they're treating the PS5 Pro, you see a little bit of that, just the exorbitant price and like very little benefit for people in upgrading to that type of console. But in how they make their games and the kinds of games they make, I don't think that really has anything to do with it.
Yeah, same.
All right, moving on. Cody writes, this is technically from a Discord conversation, but I thought it was an interesting question for the podcast. In a video game, if there is a spring platform that makes you jump significantly higher than you normally could in order to reach new areas of the map, upon jumping on it, is your preference that it automatically makes you jump to the high jump? Or do you like it when you have to hit X or the jump button to activate the high jump? Otherwise, you just keep doing small jumps. Or do you really not have a preference? So, run-on sentence aside, Cody, learn how to write.
Cody has the same degree as me, by the way, professional technical writing. I'm just gonna put that out there right now.
Well, and again, in fairness to him, this was a Discord conversation,
yeah.
An email, especially not a work email. I wanted to add this because I honestly feel like there's a lot of nuance to this.
Yeah,
like it depends on the kind of game that I'm playing.
Right.
But if I have to pick one, I want to hit the jump button to do a high jump because I want to be in control of that, of when that's happening,
when that happens,
so that I can plan it out.
I agree. I think if it's a sequence wherein speed is of the essence, I want it to automatically do it. But if it's just like, if I'm playing at my own pace and not a pace in which the game is dictating for me, I want to have control over it.
I think one thing that I'm now realizing as I talk about this that makes it extra complicated is that because every game has a different approach to this, I don't know what to do when I jump on a jump pad.
Correct.
And so by default,
I never know how.
I press X because I don't trust it to automatically jump. So like I don't know if that's actually my preference. That's how I have solved the uncertainty problem with jump pads.
Yeah. Because the path forward is whether or not hitting X does anything, you'll be getting up there as long as you like. If you don't hit it, there's a chance it won't work. But if you always hit it, it will always work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I can only choose one, let me hit the button. And it honestly would be nice if we standardize that in the industry.
Yeah, I agree.
That feels like an accessibility thing at some point.
Right.
All right. Connor writes in, subject line, Final Fontina. And Connor has a two-part question, as he is wont to do.
Yes.
Connor writes, howdy. I've been loving the Final Fantasy talk and would love to hear what each of your top 5 are. I understand 10 is too long, and there aren't that many good Final Fantasy games.
True.
And before Kyle goes, Kingdom Hearts is not a Final Fantasy game.
You motherfucker. He got
me. Yeah, Kingdom Hearts is great, but I would agree it's not a Final Fantasy game. So,
dude, Connor just snipes me with that. That hurts.
My order, you can visit SheaHatesEverything.com and read my top 100 games of all time if you want to see where these stack up in the Grand Pantheon. But I do have 5 Final Fantasy games in my top 100 games. The number 1, without dispute, is Final Fantasy X. I feel like that's probably pretty obvious, given how we have talked about that game. For me, number 2 is Final Fantasy VII, which replaying that game I might have to revisit if I'm being honest with you. Third place is Final Fantasy VI. I think it, other than 10, has my favorite story. And I think Kefka, in a lot of ways, is an even better villain than Sephiroth. Final Fantasy XII, I have as my 4th favorite, which is a bit of a dark horse even to this day. The story is not amazing. Some of the characters are not amazing, with the exception of Balthier, who's amazing. Actually, that's not true. It's really just Vaughn and Penelope. Is that right?
Yeah, Penelope or Penelope.
I think it's Penelope.
Penelope is probably correct.
Those two characters suck.
Yeah,
but
like
everybody else
nothing.
is great.
Yeah.
Balthier is awesome.
Balthier's cool.
Fucking Bosch is super dark and brooding and great.
Yeah, Bosch is cool, dude.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 12 is great. Love the battle system also. And then the last, or not last, but like my fifth is Final Fantasy 4, which I think is also an amazing story. I'm less passionate about like the space-faring, multiversal, time travel-y stuff that happens in that game, but I do think it has a really great story, and I loved just the old school turn-based combat. I would give an honorable mention to Final Fantasy 13. I'm a sucker for that game. Again, story, not great. Probably my favorite battle system of any Final Fantasy game.
Okay.
Those would be my top 5.
Okay. Obviously 10. 10 is just the best one.
Yes.
We're in agreement.
One of the best games ever made.
My second favorite is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance.
Mm-hmm.
All-time banger. Absolutely. Like that's the one that I have put more hours into than any other Final Fantasy. I have like ran my Game Boy Advance SP ragged playing that game. The first Crystal Chronicles on the GameCube, I love that game to death. I should probably go back and replay it sometime because it probably doesn't hold up in some areas, a la Final Fantasy VIII. I like how weird it is and how
it is very
unlike
weird.
anything else it is.
Yes.
I really like those like DS Crystal Chronicles games. I think those are fucking awesome. But I really like that first Crystal Chronicles. Then I would probably say in the 4 slot is 12. 12 is super good. And my 5th slot, recency bias, Final Fantasy VIII. Despite my problems with it, I really, really like the story, the presentation, music, all the stuff that I mentioned previously. I really, really like it. If I'm letting go of recency bias, if it's not 8, it would be 9.
Okay.
Would be my 5th slot.
What Final Fantasy games have you not played?
I don't remember like anything about 1 through 6. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
I remember there's an airship in like a weird mode 7, like going over a landscape in an airship, and I remember grinding for a long time and then dying and losing a lot of progress in one of them. Yeah, I like barely remember anything about the first 6. I have them all now.
Okay.
So I intend to play them. I also have guides for them. Because I don't have 3. Or no, I do have 3 because it came in Final Fantasy Chronicles, which is 3 and Chrono Cross. I have Final Fantasy Origins, which is 1 and 2. Chronicles, which is 3 and Chrono Cross. No, I'm sorry. That's 4 and Chrono Cross. And then Final Fantasy something is 5 and 6. I do not have 3. I don't think 3 was released in the US. I think there's a DS version of 3, and maybe that's it. But there is a Pixel Remaster collection of 1 through 6 coming out next month, which we'll talk about at the end. I have that pre-ordered, so I'll probably just play 3 that way. Otherwise, I'm going to play the original ones in the original format on PS1.
Yeah,
I guess that's not original format. I will play them on PS1 because some of those are like
as
NES
much original as you can.
Yeah.
I have not played the first 3, and I have never beaten 5 or 9.
Okay. I've never beaten 9 either.
Yeah, all the others. I mean, I it's possible I've never finished 8, but if I got to like what always happens with me is I get to the final boss, I decide I'm going to go grind for a while, and then I just never finish it. And so I know that's what happened in 8, but I quit much earlier in 5 because I just wasn't feeling it. And then 9, I don't know why I never finished 9. Because my memory is that I really liked it. Because it was like it was more wacky than like the brooding 7 and 8 were.
Right.
And I really like that. So yeah, 9 I intend to go back and replay.
9 is really neat.
I've played. Yeah. With the exception of 11 and 14.
Sure.
All right, so Connor says, I'll do mine if you care, but read them last. So Connor has Final Fantasy VII at number 1, and he specifically says the OG, which yeah,
man.
Remake would not be in my top 5 for sure, but I would put it as one of. Like I would, no, it's not above 13 for me. It would be after 13, but I did really like Remake. Final Fantasy VI is his number 2. Solid. Tactics Advance. Solid. That's just not my style. Like, I did really like that game. Wait, I don't remember now. Which one was War of the Lions? Is that a different game?
That is
a
remake of the original Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay. I might have never played Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced.
Oh.
Because I just don't... The strategy RPG stuff has never been my vibe. He has Final Fantasy X at number 4, which is bullshit. And then at number 5, he has Final Fantasy 16. Boo! Boo this man!
Dude, like, get off the stage, bro.
He says, "Sue me. This isn't a troll move. It had a great villain, combat was fun, and it doesn't insist upon itself." I'm not sure what you mean by that, because everything I play of Final Fantasy 16, the game definitely insisted upon itself.
Oh, it does.
That game was so far up its own ass.
It fucking does, bro. That is.
I told you, if you write us an email, we're gonna make fun of you.
I think Connor just put that in there as a Family Guy reference. I think specifically for me.
Okay.
But
see, Connor, he's like 5-6 layers deep.
Yeah,
on everything.
Connor's playing 4D chess over here.
It's like the Matrix. Like, I'm trying to decipher his email.
numbers falling down the screen. But also, I could see Connor actually meaning that it doesn't insist upon itself, for which he is grossly incorrect.
I would agree. Connor says, honorable mentions for Chrono Trigger, just because it doesn't get talked about enough. Chrono Trigger is not a Final Fantasy game. I'm very confused by this. Is there something I don't know about Chrono Trigger?
It's a Square RPG.
Yeah, but it's not a Final Fantasy
Correct,
game.
yeah.
If you're saying Kingdom Hearts isn't a Final Fantasy game, Kingdom Hearts is way more of a Final Fantasy game than Chrono Trigger is.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you.
Because if I was going to include Chrono Trigger, I would put Chrono Trigger above Final Fantasy IV. Like, that would definitely be in my top 5.
Okay.
Chrono Trigger rules. Connor also says Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy IV, and Final Fantasy 13 are also a Final Fantasy 13 truther. Yeah, I'm with you on all of those. Final Fantasy 8 should have been on games that suck. Replay it if you disagree.
Look.
Hey, Kyle, I have bad news for you.
Look.
Connor is right, and you proved him right.
No, it should not have been on games that suck.
No, I know.
Oh, my God, you're getting me all bothered.
All right. Thank you, Connor. And then Connor's PS... another food quiz for Kyle.
Oh, boy.
Connor gave a list of fast food restaurants.
Okay.
And he wants you to guess which of these places uses real cheese or fake cheese.
Ooh, okay.
I have the email pulled up where Connor thankfully gave me the answer.
Okay.
So I didn't have to look it up myself. But I went ahead and put this list in the doc in alphabetical order to not give it away for you.
Okay.
So first one, Bojangles. Does Bojangles use real cheese or fake cheese? I'm going to write this down because I want to see which
score.
ones you get right. Yeah, I want to see your score. All
Okay.
right, Bojangles.
Yeah, don't tell me
real
until
or
the end.
fake. Which ones you got?
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, then I need to get a notepad. Hang on. Okay. Bojangles.
Could you write it with like a fine tip pen? You can go get one of those. Okay. I've never eaten Bojangles. I don't know. I'm going to, this is a 50-50 shot. I'm going to say real cheese.
Real cheese. Okay, crap. See, and Connor didn't write the answers in alphabetical order, so I have no idea. Okay, you said real cheese.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, Burger King.
They are more likely to use real cheese than McDonald's, but I'm still going to say it's fake cheese.
Okay. Chick-fil-A.
Real cheese.
Chipotle.
Oh, I know that's real cheese, baby. I worked there.
Yeah, it's kind of an easy one. Dairy Queen.
I've never eaten anything other than ice cream from a Dairy Queen, so I'm going to just assume it's fake cheese.
Okay. Jack in the Box.
Also never eaten there, so 50-50 real cheese.
Okay. McDonald's.
Fake cheese.
Also an easy one. Panera.
Real cheese.
Sonic.
Fake cheese.
I'm trying not to leave too much silence as it's hard. It's hard for me mentally because I'm just getting a tally of like which ones you got right and which ones you didn't. and it's hard to match. Like if you say fake, but it was real, that doesn't go in the left column, which would normally be real. It needs to go in the right column because you got it wrong, and it's fucking with my brain a little bit.
Awesome.
All right, we just did Sonic, and you said fake cheese for Sonic.
Yeah.
Starbucks.
I don't know what would have cheese at Starbucks. I'm gonna say real because it's Starbucks.
Wait, I might have missed one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There are 3 left on this
10. Okay, I've got them all. Taco Bell.
That's depends on what your definition of real and fake is. I'm gonna say fake.
Tim Hortons.
I've never had anything from Tim Hortons. Let's say real.
And last one, Wendy's.
Fake.
I have bad news for you, Kyle.
I got them all wrong.
You failed. You did not get them all wrong. Wendy's was the tiebreaker, and you got Wendy's wrong.
Oh.
So you got 6 right and 7 wrong.
Okay.
So Bojangles is fake cheese.
Okay.
I believe you said real.
Yeah.
Burger King is fake cheese.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A is real cheese.
Okay.
Obvi. Chipotle, real cheese. Obvi.
Yeah.
Dairy Queen is fake cheese. And
Okay.
I believe you said real cheese.
No, I said fake.
Okay. Jack in the Box is real cheese.
Okay.
Which I would have definitely guessed fake. McDonald's fake. Duh. Panera, real cheese. There any place that's not like ready, sitting on a hot plate, it's usually safe to assume that it's real ingredients.
Yeah.
Sonic, fake cheese.
Of course.
Starbucks, real cheese.
Of course.
Taco Bell, real cheese.
So they say.
Yes, but you've been to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
There is cheese like on your taco. It's,
right.
That's the difference. Is many of these places, when you think of their cheese, it's like sauced on fries or on a burger, like a slice of cheese on a burger. And so that's hard to know. Is it processed? Is it real? Is it fake? But Taco Bell, they sprinkle shredded cheese on your taco.
Yeah.
It's real cheese.
I mean, it looks like processed ass neon orange cheese.
Fair enough. Tim Hortons, fake. Wendy's, real.
Well,
they got that
right.
real shit.
Oh, damn.
The only of the burger places, that's not true. Burger King and Dairy Queen, Sonic, McDonald's, all those burger places, fake cheese.
Sure.
Wendy's, Jack in the Box are the real cheese.
All right.
Rulers.
Now you know.
So you did okay, especially given there were like 3 or 4 places you've never even eaten at.
Right,
You did
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
All right. Our final email, thank you, Connor. Our final email comes from our friend Mike. Subject line, Old Wally. Why does no one talk about the age difference between Wally and Eve?
Age is just a number, brother.
Yeah, I also think, do we know that Wally is significantly older than Eve?
Well, yeah, because I like Ollie's like that old tech, right? He's like been around. He's in the junkyard for a long time, and then like is reactivated or whatever. And then Eve is like a new robot.
But as we have seen, the soul of the robot in their like microchip core, that microchip core of Eve could have existed at the time the spaceship launched. Or are you suggesting
That's
that
true.
when the spaceship launched, they continued to innovate new robotics on that ship?
Maybe.
Because I doubt it. The people on that ship were the lazy-ass Earthlings that sat in their chairs and drank smoothies for every
Well, they
meal.
weren't that way initially. They became that way over time.
Yes, but they were kind of that way initially because rather than fix the problem, they fled and they knew they were never going to come back.
Look, we're all kind of that way.
Here's my headcanon. This is what I think is the truth.
Okay.
They, Big and Large, or By and Large, whatever By and Large, is that the brand? The ones that like controlled the whole planet. They put all of their innovation into the spaceship and all of the shitty robots and mechanic shit on Earth. That's the stuff they left there. I don't think that their technology advanced while they were in space. I just think they like prioritize the sophistication. It's like Ford makes really nice cars, you know, argumentably or whatever, arguably. But like they make a really expensive nice car, and they also make like a shitty entry level model car, right? Yeah. So I believe that by and large put the really nice shit on the spaceship and the shitty shit on Earth. So I would go as far as to say is it's totally possible, if not likely, that Wall-E and Eve were made around the same time. Chew on that, Mike. What do you think about that?
Look, she only looks like she's 12, but she's actually a 300-year-old vampire, so it's okay.
Gross.
That's what you sound like.
Are you saying that Wall-E is a groomer? Is that where you're going with this?
Wall-E. He's here to defend himself.
We watch Wall-E like twice a month. I think about Wall-E a lot. Wall-E and Monsters, Inc. No joke, I have watched Monsters, Inc. 4 times in the past like 10 days.
Oh my God.
It's a great movie, but it's what my kids fucking pick every time. Today, during dinner, we were going to watch a movie, and my daughter goes, Monsters, Inc. And I was like, babe, we just watched Monsters, Inc. not 2 days ago. Can we please pick another movie?
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so Max picked Lightning McQueen!
Of course.
Which he thinks is what Cars is called. All right.
Great.
October game releases. Even though we decided to not cover everything coming out and only the things we cared about, this is still a long list.
Sure. October's a big month,
Kyle,
dude.
Yeah. You most of this honestly is yours.
Yeah.
So you talk through yours and then I'll jump in with mine.
Okay. October 8th is the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 pixel remaster that I mentioned. I think that's coming out pretty much everywhere. Also on the 8th is the Silent Hill 2 remake. Metascore for that is sitting at like a high 80s right now, which is really good. Yes. It has gotten very good reviews.
I'm stunned by that.
Yes.
It looks bad.
It showed really bad, but I guess it's really good. So that's cool. I'll be getting that. October 11th is then Metaphor Refantasio, which is also like it has like above a 90 meta right now, I think, Metascore. It's like a spiritual successor-ish kind of thing to the Persona games, but it's set in like a fantasy setting. And I guess it's like an 80-hour game, 100 hours if you want to get all the stuff, but
I don't.
Yeah, me neither, but I am actually getting this game. I didn't care about it until it reviewed this well, and people are like, it's actually kind of like better than Persona in a lot of ways.
That's interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of interested in it.
There's a demo that you can play, and your progress carries over from the demo to the game. So if you want to try it, you can try it.
I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah, you might want to.
The demo's on PS5 also.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that because everybody loves Persona. It's just not my thing. I don't like anime. I just don't like that kind of stuff. And so it being more fantasy, it still seems very anime.
It's still very anime, though.
It being more fantasy makes it more appealing.
Sure.
And so that's why I was like, if I'm gonna play one of their games, it'll be this one.
It seems like this might be the best one of their games. So
that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
All right. On the 15th is Neva. I still don't know how to pronounce that game. This is from the folks that made Gris, which is a game that I loved. It's my kind of game, man. It's a very pretty, artsy-fartsy, side-scroller kind of action platformer. This has got more combat in it than Gris did, which I guess Gris technically kind of had no combat. But the story that they're setting up here looks really interesting, and I've got a lot of faith in that studio. So this is one of the like top-tier indie games that I've been keeping my eye on for a while. So very excited about it.
Yeah. It's also pronounced Gris because it's French.
No.
It is, but nope. October 22nd is Fear the
Jusant.
Jusant. October 22nd is Fear the Spotlight. That's that like PS1 graphics horror game made by like a couple they released the game in like an early version on Steam and then actually pulled it down because a publisher contacted them and like, hey, we really like this. We want to help you make it even better, make it bigger, and like help it be like more fully realized. And so it is re-releasing October 22nd. After having been undergoing like further development over the next like last year or so, I think it's been at a couple of like presentations. It was at E3, that's not E3, Summer Game Fest. It was at a couple places there. Looks super cool. October 25th is Black Ops 6. It's also coming to Game Pass, so that's pretty neat. It's the first Call of Duty game to come to Game Pass.
Yeah. Well, no, it isn't. First one to come to Game Pass at launch.
At launch, yes. Sorry.
I'm still waiting for them to put Modern Warfare 2 on there.
Yeah.
Because I haven't played that yet.
October 28th is Sulphur. This is like an Adventure Time style graphic. Like graphically looks a little like 3D Adventure Time, but it's like a dungeon crawler type game that's like a shooter, but not like you're not typical weapons. It's like kind of funky looking weapons. It seems like it has a lot of neat personality. I really like the art style. Seems like writing is pretty cute. That seems pretty great. I'm excited about that one. Had my eye on it for a while. It's finally coming out. This next one's yours.
Yes, on the 29th, Life is Strange Double Exposure. Max is back. I'm very excited to see more of that. I still have never played True Colors.
Me neither.
Which, Kyle, you and your partner gifted to me for Christmas or birthday or something years ago, and right. I still haven't played it. But yeah, I loved the first Life is Strange, and I guess season 2. Less so the fucking offshoot one that a different studio made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love these style of games, and especially that it'll have more gameplay oriented around the like time travel-y kind of stuff and you know, multiversal kind of stuff. Should be cool. And then on the 31st, Dragon Age the Veilguard. I don't know, man.
I don't know either. I feel like I should.
I'm definitely not buying it carte blanche. Like, I will wait and look at reviews from people that I trust, but people that I trust have been all over the map on it, which makes it tough to parse.
It's just like, I feel like if I don't buy it, BioWare will dissolve.
Hey, unfortunately, if this game isn't good, they should dissolve.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem, Dragon Age the Veilguard. If this game is bad, it's over, dude. It is over. And I think this game looks bad. Everything I see from this game looks bad.
Yeah.
I hate the animation. I hate the visual style.
Yeah.
The facial animations are atrocious.
Yeah.
The combat does not look interesting or engaging.
Yeah.
It looks extremely surface level and then overly complicated in how you try to set up the like primer detonator stuff that they've been fucking doing for 13 years at this point and haven't evolved that at all. This game looks like trash, but people that I trust have been playing it at different preview events and saying, guys, it's pretty fun. The writing's pretty good. The combat is actually pretty interesting. Give it a shot. And I don't see how.
I'm not seeing it
how.
I'm not seeing it.
So we'll have to wait and see for reviews.
Yeah.
And, you know, if the people that I trust say that it's good, I will check it out.
Okay.
It looks bad. And I feel like I generally have a pretty good track record with this stuff. And I think I literally could give two fucks about all the culture war shit around it. So don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, as a video game, the video game-ness of this video game, I think it looks quite bad.
Yeah.
We're going to find out this month.
Yeah.
We will know. We won't know on the next podcast, which is a bummer. Because it comes out at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So. But maybe I'll have bought it by the time we record.
And then lastly, just at an undetermined time in October, they've not announced a date yet, just that it will happen in October, is the Alan Wake 2 The Lake House DLC, which looks fucking incredible.
It looks really cool and scary.
Yes.
It scared me in the little trailer. I got scared.
Yes.
I didn't like it.
It looks great.
This seems like a good fit to like shadow drop on like the Friday before Halloween.
Right.
That feels like the move.
Actually, on October 22nd, I get my physical copy of Alan Wake 2 that I ordered.
Oh, nice.
That's part of the collector's edition. The rest of the collector's edition, unfortunately, because some manufacturing issues, it's shipping like early next year kind of a thing. But
okay.
I am getting at least my physical copy of Alan Wake 2. Again, because I'm a fucking crazy person and I must own them all physically now. So excited for that.
So yeah, those are the October releases that we're interested in. It's a long list. If you want to shoot us an email, what did we miss? What are you going to be planning on playing? What old games are you catching up on? Send an email to info@sheahateseverything.com or just ask us whatever you want and we'll read it.
Yep.
What are we going to play in October? For sure.
The Game Club
part
game.
of our Game Club game. We're going to play Call of Duty.
Yeah, campaign of Black Ops 6.
Yeah. I'm bummed that it comes out like a week before we're going to record.
Yeah, we'll
so
only
I
have 1
doubt
week.
I will have finished the campaign by then. But we both want to play it. And so it's a good excuse to do that. And then we can talk about it on the pod.
Right.
I'm kind of excited for it.
I'm pretty pumped for it. I think the Omni movement system seems really interesting. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to fuck around with in the campaign in a way that it would be more frustrating than fun in the multiplayer, I think.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah, and I liked Cold War. Like, that game was a huge surprise for me when I played it, just with the cool shit that they were doing narratively.
Totally.
So that part of it is interesting. What they've shown from the campaign, it looks far more straightforward than Cold War did.
Okay.
Cold War was, but yeah, I'm interested. Yeah. It's been a while since I played a Call of Duty campaign.
I think it'll be a good time.
All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
This is like the perfect episode length to please no one.
Yeah, that's right.
Because people that want a long episode are going to say that it's still too short, and people that liked the shorter episode are going to complain that it's too long. So I don't know, man.
That's fine.
We're just doing our best.
I'm just doing
here.
my best.
We're just talking about video games. I'll say that my name is Shea, and today I don't hate Steam family sharing.
Yes.
Because Kyle absolutely did not help me game the system so that I could access his Steam family account.
We're part of the family. We're brothers. We're of the same family.
We are literally a family.
Yes.
But according to Steam, they define family by IP address,
which is fucked up.
Like
because,
that, your surname is your IP address.
Yeah, like what about families who like have divorced parents and kids stay at different houses and stuff? That's fucked up.
There you go. But yeah, we may have found a way around that, which is how I was able to play Caravan Sandwich and have a bunch of, thank goodness you're here, I was able to play. And
a
bunch of other top priority games. This month is going to be busy. The Plucky Squire is on PlayStation Plus Premium, so I get to play that now since I'm paying for that fucking service.
Yeah. Yeah, I have 982 games on Steam, so enjoy those.
Yeah, there was one, I sent you a screenshot, and you pretended to act as if you didn't know what this was about.
So Connor will think this is very funny, because he's probably the fucking one who gifted it to me, because that friend group, we get each other Steam games all the time. What was that game?
Let me see, what's this game called? It's Sakura Spirit.
Sakura Spirit, yes. It's like a total, like, porn anime game. I would like the audience to know I have 0 time played. I do not intend on playing it. I'm 95% certain it was gifted to me by one of my scumbag friends for Christmas as a joke one year. I do know Game Grumps did a playthrough of it, though, which is why I know what it is.
I was when I got access to the stuff, I was scrolling through the entire library just to like make a priority list of stuff I wanted to play. And I scrolling through and I saw this game. So I screenshotted it and texted it to Kyle. I just said, bro, what are you playing? And he goes, I'm not going to lie. I don't know what that game is. And of course, I did not believe him.
Right.
And that's when you said that a friend probably gifted it to you, which likely story.
You
don't need game time.
Confirm that I don't have game time in it.
Yeah, the thumbnail is just like a ponytailed blonde Asian chick with her boobs hanging out. You don't need game time in that game to get something out of it. That's what I'm
officer,
saying.
I swear this is my friend's
That's
weed.
my suspicion.
My friend put this weed in my bag. I swear to God.
I'm sure they did. Is this friend in the room with us right now?
I don't hate. My name's Kyle. I don't hate homeowners insurance. Because while the tree fell in my house, insurance is paying for the replacement of my entire roof, which will make the resale value of my home much higher at no cost to me other than my deductible, which is fantastic. Right. So
yes,
as long as I manage the process and make sure my contractor doesn't try and fuck me over, everything should be fine. So I don't hate that.
That's great. And that's the podcast. Woo. Thank you all for listening. Kyle, thank you for joining. As always, if you want to reach us, send us an email to info@SheaHatesEverything.com. Please head to SheaHatesEverything.com for the show notes of this podcast. I'll have a screenshot of Kyle's James Bond video game tier list on there. You can also check out my top 100 games to see where those Final Fantasy games check out. Please subscribe, follow us. Leave a rating, leave a review, tell your friends, all the good marketing business to continue to spread the video game love. And we will be back mid-October with games that suck from the year 2000. It is the distant future, the year 2000. And then we'll be back first Monday of November, which I think is the 4th of November. It is the 4th of November with another flagship episode of this podcast. Who fucking knows how long that one's going to be? It could be 2 hours. It could be 5 hours. We're wild cards now.
That's right. We're just shooting from the hip over here, man.
But that's it. Peace out.